traditions of men, it's a no-brainer. You're such a tyrannical reigner. Is this your first time on the interwebs? Jamie! I need a ginger chew. Can't take it, these low-tier slow boys. Is this your first time on the interwebs? Jamie! I need a ginger chew. Was that an uncreated foot fart? Unmute, dude. Stop repeating my name, dude. You goobers call in, or I'll boot you. Where did we get the Bible from? Have you read the canons of Franzia? What are you, Catholic? Are you Protestant? I'm not trying to be mean, but do you have an actual argument? There is only one church. You are in a cult. You're a goblin, a demon, a boomer tard. Quick question. Do we have any diddy-back venerators in the chat? Oh! Is this your first time on the interwebs? Jamie! I need a ginger chew. Can't take it, these low-tier slow boys. Is this your first time on the interwebs? Jamie! I need a ginger chew. If you're a wine mom, front of the line. Unmute, dude. Your epistemic justification. That argument is circular and you are refuted. Is this your first time on the interwebs? Jamie! I need a ginger chew. Can't take it, these low-tier slow boys. Is this your first time on the interwebs? Jamie! I need a ginger chew. If you're a wine mom, front of the line. Unmute, dude.
There's only one thing that can bring this world together, and that begins with you. But word begins with you, not you. I'm gonna tell you what word it is. Usury. On the dance floor. Get that ass up. Bankers, get on the floor. Bankers, make the people poor. Bankers, get more paid. Bankers, get more paid. I wanna see your ass poor. CEOs, yeah, I'm talking to you. Get more hoes, get more paid, get more votes, get more laid. I wanna see the CEOs ruining lives to the beat. Ruin those lives in 141 BPMs. Oh yeah. Interest rates. I wanna see the banker on the floor. I wanna see your ass poor. Make it clap. Make it fiat clap. Shake that ass. Usury on the dance floor. Make the people poor. Bankers, get more paid. Bankers, get more laid. Only one thing can bring this world together. Destruction of the middle class. And more fiat cash in my bank account. Bankers, get on the floor. Bankers, make the people poor. Bankers, get more paid. Bankers.
I hope we get some callers. I love you guys. I'm not mean anymore. I'm changed. I'm nice. I'm nice man now. I'm nice. I know I was muted. I was talking to the people that I didn't want you to hear. It was a private conversation between me and the people I love. You're going to have to deal with it. Are you jelly? A little bit jelly? I think the chat is behind. I should not be muted. Can you hear me now? Ooh. We got a bunch of jealous people in the audience. How come he ain't talking to me? I want attention. Where's the original unmute, dude? Unmute, dude.
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car.
Afforded? Learn some grammar.
Ready?
Which?
Right, 100.
Afforded this car?
Open debate. Here we go again.
Where did we get the Bible from?
Did you even read the canons?
So Franzia.
There is only one church. You are in a cult. You're a goblin, a demon, a boomer tard. You're so mean.
What I like about this song is that it sounds like an evangelical praise and worship band. It sounds awful. And that's what makes it funny.
On your dude, is this your first time on the interwebs? Shady, I need a ginger Jew. Can't take it, these low tier.
Oh, everybody having a good day? What's up?
Dude, 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. Icons are idolatry. Why do you pray to dead people?
All right, let's get it started. Enough of that nonsense. And I want to give a shout out to, before we get into the open calls, Buck Johnson did a great podcast with, I don't know who Monique is, but if it's a sister named Monique,
Tradition,
I'm on board.
Methodists have a way of handling tradition.
I listened to this podcast. It was a great podcast. Everybody should check it out. It's the interview with Father John Whiteford and Jim Jotras, friends of ours, of course. And they were very kind, said a lot of nice things. I appreciate that. Have nothing but kind words for all those guys as well. Not so much for these Protestant people who didn't have very good points at all. And I was going to do kind of a response to this podcast, but it's not really necessary because they didn't even really talk about much. It was basically just Orthodoxy is not American, and so America's not going to become Orthodox, and which has nothing to do with whether it's true or false. It's all just culture stuff. So you can go listen to their critique of it. They did fine critiquing it. The link is in the chat over on Buck's podcast. And I noticed one funny contradiction in the podcast. Father Whiteford kind of hit on it, but they fuss about the American church in general in the Protestant domain, and you could extend that to Catholic and even elements of Orthodoxy, that there's a high level of acceptance of the Skittles through all the social engineering and whatnot in the last 50, 60, 100 years. And then he's like, but we don't want to become Orthodox because it's like mystical and gay or whatever. And it's like, dude, you just admitted that your own Protestant nation, America, which you tout America as Protestant and Protestant as America, and America's a Protestant nation, that's your pride and glory. You just admitted that it's a giant gay church, and that's why everybody's going to other areas like Orthodoxy, and then you call Orthodoxy gay, so it made no sense. So, and by the way, the highest percentages of anti-Skittles countries are the ones that are these still nominally Orthodox countries like Georgia, Russia, etc. So, they also didn't know anything about Orthodox theology, shocker. They thought Orthodoxy has Gregorian chant. It's like, people are converting to Orthodoxy for the Gregorian chant. Yeah, which doesn't exist in Orthodoxy. So, good job. If you want to support the stream, you can do so via Super Chats. Super Chats are reactivated. We're back. We're in the money. Yes, they were. This was just such a weak outing. I mean, they should have at least tried to address some of the reasons, but they're like, but nobody's converting over theology. They're only converting for cool aesthetics. No. I mean, we're not focusing on cool aesthetics on my channel. Maybe we should focus on that more. But we're always, every day for years, not every day, but multiple days, arguing the theology. So they don't even know how to assess their own issues. It's like, you should be able to assess that the problem is that people are converting over the theological issues and the historical issues. And then they just deny that in the podcast. And they're like, well, we know it's not that. It has to be the cool art. I've never met anybody who literally converted over cool art. They might have had an interest in Orthodox theology or whatever through the art. But it's the theology, dog. And by the way, you can... people are concerned with what's true. And they just can't fathom that maybe their position isn't true, and that people are actually looking into the arguments for orthodoxy and comparing it to Catholicism, etc. Now, feel free to call in. And the way that you guys call in, we already got big fat super chatters rolling it out, making this whole outing worth it. I don't even have to do anything now. We can just retire. By the way, where's Bitcoin at, boys and girls? Exactly where I told you it would be. And we're only going higher. I don't know if it'll be this week. We might drop again, but it's like, no matter how much winning occurs, haters be in denial. You can always still, by the way, super chat through Streamlabs if you choose to. But we do have memberships as well. I'll be linking some more members content probably today or tomorrow. And turn what off? What are you talking about? Let's see. Let's see what we got. Super chat here. He says, Gabriel, $50. Yo, Tucker interviewed Shamath. You talking about that billionaire Indian dude? At 1 hour 57, they discuss how all worldviews are theory laden and that Silicon Valley atheists must have their own assumptions as starting points. Great to hear your quick perspective. Sounds like somebody's been listening to what we talk about, because I don't know anybody else out there pushing that worldviews are theory laden. I mean, I'm not saying I came up with that, but like in terms of present day pushing that perspective, I ain't heard nobody else saying that. I mean, again, Tucker could have heard that from somebody else or Chamath or whoever, but I think maybe we're having a bigger effect than we thought. People think that so like when they did that big Wall Street Journal, where they interviewed, I think, Father Wyford and Father Josiah and people, they asked me to do an interview and I said no. And by the way, that's like the third or fourth major mainstream outlet that's asked me to do an interview, and I've turned them all down. And it's not because I wouldn't mind the exposure or whatever, because I usually go on people's podcasts. But you'll notice I almost always exclusively go on kind of alternative media type podcasts. I've never done a mainstream media interview ever, magazine, newspaper, whatever, because I don't trust any of them. And so I've had Wall Street Journal twice. I've had New Yorker magazine. I've had all these things reach out, and I just don't even reply. For one, I don't trust any of those people to actually report what I say. I just assume they're going to lie. So, Ortho Joe for $5. Jay, when is Pastor Rennie Balls and Shake Your Booty going to do a debate? Well, they would probably pray and come to the same conclusions that they worship the same God. So I don't even know if they could have a debate. I don't know why my color is all messed up in here. The color scheme is all off, dog. I look like a damn hot dog or something. Look at what they gave me. What a strange reversal. They decided, so we're not far from 200K, but they did a strange reversal and decided, okay, we'll be on the right side of history. We'll give you this little thing here. This little plaque right here. You get a little plaque for what you did. Good job doing 1 million videos to get to 100,000. Good job. You get a little plaque. Get a little plaque on your teeth right there. Just kidding. I'm thankful to have, I guess, the reward for whoring myself out on the internet to get 100,000 subscribers. Dude just admitted it. Clip that and expose him, bro. Exposed. It ain't on my icon shelf, dog. That's not even anywhere near the books. I just put it up on the bookshelf. So. And, I mean, I guess it's kind of okay. Like, it makes sense to get some kind of award, I guess. I mean, it was a lot of damn work to get to 100,000. I mean, we were just demonetized, you know, we was dissed in the algorithm. I even talked to some people who know about it, and they were like, yeah, your channel probably has a controversial rating, which means that it's never going to be pushed in the algorithm. So, the audio is breaking up. I don't understand why the audio would be breaking up. Victor Ziegler, straight up from Eyes Wide Shut. He says, Dyer equals Lance from Elite 4. What is Elite 4? Is it some kind of video game? Somebody was saying the audio was doing this last night. The weird thing is that I don't see any indications that there's any problems. Let me see the stream indicators, see if it says there's any issues. It says stream quality is fine. YouTube doesn't have any. YouTube says it's healthy. It might be y'all's internet. Somebody said last night that the audio was cutting out, but then I went back and listened to last night's podcast, and I never heard any audio cutouts. So it might be on y'all's end, or sometimes YouTube buffers, has issues with buffering. CS999 with thumbs up. Thanks, dog. Appreciate that. Try refreshing if you are hearing some kind of skipping or something. I don't know. Alula sends $5. I literally tell everybody about you. I'm not kidding. People are amazed about the sources I give them about what's happening in the world, but all I do is repeat what you say. So I always tell them about you. Well, thank you, Alula. That's very sweet. Appreciate that. I don't know what Elite 4 is. It sounds like a video game. By the way, I chose this year to fast for an entire year from video games. Not that I really play a lot of video games, but I thought, you know what? I want to bust butt this upcoming year because I want to stack more Bitcoin than normal, and I want to finish Esoteric Hollywood 3. And so I realized the best route to that was to completely cut off all video games for the next year. And again, I mean, I might have put in a few hours a week, so it's not like I'm spending hours every day playing video games anyway, but I'm like, you know what, the next year I'd rather take that time and energy that went into any video game, and it's going to go into business related things in order to just simply stack Bitcoin. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed how bullish everything is now. You got like 4 states talking about making a strategic Bitcoin reserve on top of the federal government with the limits bill. Joe Pirota, 5 Canadian bucks. Christ is God. Thank you so much. Victor Ziegler, $2. Pokemon X. Okay, I don't know anything about Pokemons, but I will trust your expertise. Welcome, everybody. We got open debate today. The topics are listed: Protestant, Catholic, Muslim, atheist, libertarian, feminist, Marxist, Hebrew roots, Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, Hebrew Israelite. Get them crazy people calling in. And the way you call in is through the Twitter space or the X space. You can call in right here. It's also pinned. Well, pinned is, excuse me, that's to join the channel if you want to do memberships. And we hit 220 members yesterday, so. All right, we got Queen of the Juice. Uh-oh. This sounds hardcore right here. Queen of the Juice, gotta unmute. Unmute, dude.
Hey, Jay. How's it going?
I'm good. What's up with you?
Hey, doing great, you know.
Are you drinking Franzia right now? How much wine you got?
I don't drink. I just drink a lot of water and coffee. How about you?
I only drink Franzia. It's difficult because I get really thirsty for water, but then I discipline myself to not drink water, to only quench my thirst with more Franzia from that box, baby. I live on the box.
Oh, box wine?
Yeah. Is there another kind of Franzia?
I don't know. I'm not familiar, to be honest.
So what's on your mind?
Well, what's on my mind is just being so grateful to God Almighty, even though I've had so much propaganda and rhetoric used against me, name calling, etc. I realize that during debate, if the other person really doesn't have an argument, they just devolve into name calling.
Yeah, that definitely happens. What are you usually debating?
I'm usually debating the illegitimacy of the government in general, and that the government is meaningless and has no purpose without people, and people will always have meaning and purpose without the government. Same with the artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence has no meaning or purpose without humanity, and humanity will always have meaning and purpose without the artificial intelligence.
I guess I sympathize with a lot of that, but so what are your so you're libertarian? Is that why you clicked in here?
Oh no, I'm not a libertarian. I'm actually anti-government. And they radicalized me to be against them through their terrorism efforts.
Libertarians? Or government? What do you mean?
No, the organized, government and using their authoritarian technology, the technocrats. You're well aware of them. I know you've been studying their literature. Like, I've been studying their literature. I've seen you read out of books that I don't have, which is interesting to me. But we've been reading some of the same literature. You're familiar with Ray Kurzweil?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how Ray Kurzweil and Bill Gates want to make a new religion.
Yeah, I'm sure they would like to have some kind of new technocratic religion. Those two, sure.
Yeah, where they're the high priest of it. And we know that Bill Gates is friends with Trump, and, Trump with all this AI and all the efforts with the AI to analyze people's behavior. And we also know through the B.F. Skinner and the works of these other behavior analysts that they're literally torturing people to analyze their behavior through torturing. So they're going to be using artificial intelligence for these same purposes.
Yeah, well, today's topics are more religious, so did you have any, I'm not disagreeing with your overall thesis that they want a social credit score and AI to run it and all that, but today we're talking about Catholicism, Protestantism, Orthodoxy, atheism, Islam. Do you have anything on those topics that you'd like to debate or discuss?
My main thing I would like to discuss would be the mark of the beast system coming into fruition through this technology, track and trace technology, and those prophecies of having this mark that you can't buy or trade without, and the digital currency realm, and having everything tied into this CBDC, which can be switched on and off.
Well, but Trump banned CBDC, so how would that be? How would that fit into what? Because you said Trump's bad, but he banned CBDC.
Well, we know that. First, I'm anti-government, all in general. I am anti all these guys. They've literally tortured us. So, from what I understand, the rest of everyone else is just basically being under Stockholm syndrome at this point. So it's hard to even debate with people that are mentally ill. But regardless of that, Trump has an illegal surveillance. He's in control of the United States government. He could shut down all these illegal surveillance operations, but we see he's choosing not to. And
but again, so today's topics are theological, and you're saying mark of the beast. Are you saying that Trump is rolling out the mark of the beast? I don't understand where you're going.
The Antichrist, Trump, is the Antichrist.
All right, we're done. I'm sorry. I feel sorry for you. I'm
And
not
he's
trying
tricked the
to.
majority of the Christians
yeah.
to go.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Amanda. And it took 20 minutes to get to the heart of the thing, which was that Trump
Hello?
is the Antichrist. What's up?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. It was that I was. Am I? Can I hear? I can't hear anyone. In
What? You're here. What's up?
hello?
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah. Can you hear me? Hello?
hear anyone. I'm
All right.
sorry. I'll
Well,
leave.
your phone is messed up. It's not my problem. Sorry. Good grief, dude. We're off to a wild start. Y'all ready for some adventures today? Savio?
Hey, how you doing, Jay?
Mm.
Yeah, I have a question. So I remember he's talking to a Muslim, and the Muslim saying that something can be generated into existence but be uncreated. And my question is that in Orthodoxy, or I think in Leviticus chapter 9-ish, it says the glory of God was worshipped. Would that pertain to the energy essence distinction, or that's just a question?
Yeah, it's called a theophany.
Oh, okay.
It's a manifestation of the divinity.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and the problem is that the Muslim was saying that a creature can be eternally generated. You're talking about the Anas guy that I just shared the clip last night. How does a creature be eternally generated? That makes no sense. Chikmalo? Unmute. Shikamalio? Unmute, dude.
Hey, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
I just had a question about the biblical canon, and I know you're a proponent of using the argument of the formation of the canon against Protestants, right?
Yeah, sure.
So I would like to ask you if you think something similar could be used against the Catholics. I know they accept the canon based on like papal authority at the Council of Rome, I believe, and we base our canon on like the Sixth Council or something like that. So I would like to ask you if you think there is any argument to be had with the Catholics about the canon, like against Catholicism in general, or would it be just we say this, you say this, and fruitless?
Well, I mean, I guess in their mindset, because they presuppose the papal view all the way back throughout the first millennia, they're going to say that that canon is authoritative because of Pope Damasus and the councils of Rome. We're going to say, okay, we appreciate that the West basically has the same canon as the East, but we're going to look for the ecumenical council discussion of it rather than just the Patriarch of the West saying that the Deuterocanon is part of the canon. So I don't know. I mean, in other words, that argument hinges on papalism versus synodality and conciliarism.
All right, so you would say that it isn't like a very good argument against Catholics, and we should just.
Well, it's not that it's a bad argument. It's just that it boils back down to it boils back down to the thing in question: conciliarism versus papalism.
So you would just challenge the papal supremacy or like authority directly.
Yeah, I think the strongest route for that is to just go into all of the counterexamples to Vatican I in the first millennium, of which there are many, and all of those.
Familiar thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Good questions. Appreciate it. Nerd.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Do you mind if I ask you a philosophical question? Because I've been trying to wrap my head around sort of the recursive circle of orthodoxy, because it is recursive, and that's what makes it not contradictory, I think. Wouldn't it be for transcendentals that if transcendentals exist, then a certain metaphysic is needed in epistemology, that it must be the Orthodox God, And then in order to quote unquote justify, because I was arguing an atheist about this, to justify the Orthodox God, it would be the Transcendentals, and that's the circle.
No, it's just that any worldview bottoms out at something that's self-recursive and not justifiable. So God is the ultimate starting point or the ultimate foundation. So God doesn't and can't be justified because by definition God is the ultimate self-referencing thing. He says, "I am that I am." That's self-referencing. So there's no other thing that you appeal to justify God, because God is the grounding for all possibilities or all conceptions, all categories, etc.
So would you say proof instead of justification? Because that sounds like grounding, but it wouldn't be grounding. It would just be, well, since the Transcendentals exist, like the X is a necessary condition for Y therefore X.
Well, proof is kind of a generic type of term, because there's all different types of arguments and different types of proofs. So, I mean, if you demonstrate that your argument grounds the things in question, that would be a kind of a proof.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that was helpful. Those are fair questions. Roman Omen. Welcome, Father Deacon. Feel free to chime in if you would like.
Hey, thanks, appreciate it.
Sure. Victor Ziegler, 10 pounds. I want to keep hearing that donation jingle. It's a psyop. Yes, I'm mind controlling you to keep giving super chats with that EDM jingle.
Hello?
Hey.
So I was having a conversation this morning with someone on Twitter, and I thought he raised a good point about the canonical status of Augustine's sainthood. And I was under the impression that he recanted basically most of the errors that he made throughout his lifetime.
No, it's not true.
No,
retractions doesn't deal with any of the big stuff.
Okay.
But he's a saint because the Fifth Ecumenical Council calls him a saint. So.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was like, I submit to the bride of Christ, and I agree with that. But what is the main difference between him and Origen? Because Origen also got posthumously anathematized.
Because it's not just about being wrong; it's about the obstinacy. And so, Origen was excommunicated and never rejected his mistakes, and Augustine submitted his writings to the church and said the church can judge these. And that's why it's the Constantinople I went with the Cappadocian model of the Trinity and not the Augustinian model. But yeah, good questions.
It's funny. I was having an argument with one of the liberal theology professors, but he was an Origen lover. And that exact question came up. And I was like, well, he's condemned as a heretic. And we talked about what makes heretic. And he tried to defend Origen, saying, but I found a place where it says, I open anything I say to be corrected by the church. Well, you can say something like that, but the fact that he didn't.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't. Just because
Origen was condemned. Yeah, Origen was condemned in his day and left the teaching of the church, and he also did other things that booted him from the church, like castrating himself. So,
yeah.
Rabbi, what's up?
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi. Okay. So first things first, I'm not a rabbi. I'm actually Orthodox. I'm just a total psyop. I just wanted to, because I saw that there's libertarian in the title, and you said you want to talk about theology and whatnot. So I'm not sure if it's best for me to be here. But I would like to talk to you about libertarianism, if that's okay.
Okay.
Right. So, first things first, what's your stance on libertarianism?
Well, libertarianism comes out of the Enlightenment, so I don't see how it's really combinable in its fundamental forms with Orthodox Christianity. There's elements of libertarianism that we probably agree with, some of the basics, but the idea that, the state is a human institution, social contract, utilitarianism, all the things that are usually attendant upon, natural rights, like all these things that are usually kind of the essence of libertarianism out of the Enlightenment are, in my view, untenable.
Also, I'd say, too, when I've taught a class on this, just comparing kind of more modern political thinkers and theories of government compared to antiquity, it's all modern theories, especially libertarian, is all premised on kind of negative rights, creating laws that will enable somebody to do something, but restrict somebody from committing theft, murder, different stuff like that. And if you look at the way antiquity is structured in terms of law in the state, it's never this kind of Hobbesian, man's just going to kill everybody, and so we have to create laws to prevent him to do that. It's about creating laws that promote virtue. So the end for the state in antiquity is, who cares about freedom if it's preventing somebody from obtaining virtue? You create laws to prevent people from doing those things, and you create laws to promote virtue. And I thought that was an essential distinction between the kind of two.
Yeah, negative liberty versus the state having a duty to promote virtue.
Yeah.
Okay, so I feel like you're talking more about state libertarianism, whereas I might be a little bit more extreme than that. I see myself as an anarchist. So to me, my perspective is more like the state is. So I think the laws and whatnot it should go down to the household level, really. And I think the best way to establish a theocracy, if anything, is through anarchy. A slave cannot have two masters, right? And I feel,
do you think the New Testament is anarchic in its perspective when Paul says that Caesar has the sword and he is a diakonos?
No, not necessarily. The Bible came before the establishment of the modern state, right? So my issue is more with the modern state. Kind of started 1648. But my personal perspective is, I think, the only way to actually be proper in a manner, so the state is antithetical to theology, I feel. A slave cannot have two masters. And I feel like Caesar is demanding worship. So render unto God what belongs to God, right? But Caesar thinks he's...
Yeah, but wasn't that true at the time of the first century when Paul wrote Romans and Nero?
100%. I don't think Paul liked Caesar.
What?
I don't think Paul liked Caesar.
Yeah, but Romans 13 calls him still a diakonos.
I'm not really familiar with that term, just so you know.
I thought you were Orthodox.
Well, I am Orthodox, but I'm not...
You don't know what the word diakonos means?
No, diakonos, no.
Okay. Well, good points, fair points. Appreciate that. We're going to move on. Dallas, what's up, man?
Hello.
What's up, dog?
Yeah, I got a question. So Decree 16 at the Council of Jerusalem, I heard a guy today, promote that orthodoxy, before, I guess, he was basically saying orthodoxy the past 100 years is fake, and orthodoxy before that is real orthodoxy, and therefore they used to believe in inherited guilt like the Roman Catholics do.
No, do you think that's really a tenable argument? All orthodoxy since Decree 16 is fake. No, this is a basic misunderstanding of the Latin or the Western terminology that's used in some of those confessions and creeds and councils. And so remission of sins, sometimes even Paul talks about remission of sins as if everyone who's under Adam has or needs remission of sins, and it's just talking about the state that they're in. It doesn't mean that they have actual guilt. And so both the Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church, especially in those later centuries after the Middle Ages, they started to develop a distinction between original sin and actual sin. So the people that you're talking about who just say this stuff on Twitter, they have no idea what they're talking about. They're just spouting stuff. And now they're actually talking about something that would be schism, to say that everybody got it wrong post 1600s. It's just retarded. It's not worth anybody's time. This is why we tell you guys not to listen to people who've never studied theology and they just run around on Twitter and they don't have any blessing to teach. They just confuse people. The only thing they do is confuse people. So no, there's no church in the world except for Calvinism. Unless you want to go be a Calvinist, you can go still believe in inherited guilt with them. Maybe traditional Lutherans. I don't even know. But No, it's just kind of preposterous to think that everybody got it wrong when it's more likely. No, it's absolutely the case that they're wrong. Amanda Lee, you want to try again?
Hello, is it working this time?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, but I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I won't.
I don't know why you can't. It's not common sense. You can say that original sin and everybody encompassed under the descent of Adam is deprived of the grace of immortality. But they make the leap that it therefore means that they're damned and that they have personal guilt. Damnation is contingent on personal guilt, actual sin, not original sin. And that's why the Bible itself says that nobody is guilty for their father's sin. So you either believe in a contradiction or you have a way to reconcile these two positions. And the Western Latin understanding, when Augustine translated and misunderstood that text, because the Greek doesn't say what the Latin says. He thought all men are guilty in Adam, when it says that all men are in Adam and sin because they're sons of Adam. They're not sinners because they're in Adam, as in an archetype, and therefore Augustine attributed to Paul the teaching of original guilt. Nobody else taught that in the West, in the East. And by the way, the early Western church fathers didn't teach that either. So they're just confusing statements like that. And by the way, the irony there is that when Catholics or these Western right idiots think that those councils are teaching Latin theology, that would mean that they're borrowing from the Roman Catholic terminology and mindset, which didn't teach original guilt. So the very thing that they argue that it's borrowing from, or that it's speaking in line with Western Latin theology, it's about the Synod of Jerusalem and whatnot, well, that would mean that they're adopting the Roman Catholic position, or that they're restating the Roman Catholic position, according to these people. And if that's the case, then they're also still not teaching original guilt, because the Roman Catholics don't teach original guilt. It's just so idiotic. Like, people they don't know the basics, and then they run off on Twitter and they go crazy with a bunch of people's like quote mines, and it's just a waste of time. So you're wasting your own time following these people who will just lead you into nonsense. And that's why they'll go on the comments of Bishop Irenaeus and tell Bishop Irenaeus that he's a heretic, like Prime did. So you're just wasting your time following people who are like 22-year-olds and don't know anything.
By the way, I mean, it's a whole issue and problem with kind of a Protestant mindset and Americanism that, well, we just have a free market of online Orthodox content providers, and I pick your favorite one. Even if no credentials, even if clergy warn against, you just choose your own theology.
Right.
It's a total kind of free market American Protestantism, and it's just, that doesn't mean that somebody can't question clergy and stuff like that, but there's a prescribed way that, again, and there's a consensus among the clergy too. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, there's no clergy that say what they say.
Yeah.
It's just idiots on the internet.
Well, they're all wrong, and
they'll even say all the clergy are wrong, but we're right.
Which shows you another instance of why it's very Protestant. The necessity to have normative authority to resolve these disputes. Why clergy at various levels, right, going up from the diaconate to the priests, to the bishops, to synods, are legally binding on you, because otherwise every goofus can just go and quote mine and make their own case, and then you just have the free market and you got to rely on your own understanding, just figure out the best, and then you're totally confused.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's just not the Orthodox way of going about it.
It's Protestant, exactly as you said. ALC since $5. First super chat, Bishes, thank you. Here's a great article that Meyendorff wrote a long time ago that really summarizes the root of this mistake and why the idea of original guilt even came to be. And it's because in Romans 5, when Augustine was arguing against the Pelagians, he thought that this was a key passage that proved that all men are guilty in Adam because they're in Adam as in an archetype, which is literally what he says in City of God. I've done a whole lecture through. I read most of those key writings of Augustine. I read all the anti-Pelagian, all the anti-Donatist. I read City of God. I read the theological treatises. And he does teach, clear as day, multiple times over, that everybody is in Adam as in an archetype, and that's why they're guilty. It's called Mass Damnata is the name of the doctrine. And it was never taught in the East. And eventually, when the East saw that this was being taught, it was rejected. And that's why you have people like St. Photius saying, no, we don't believe this. And so there's a reconciliation for how infants are, quote, innocent, meaning innocent of personal sins, actual sins, yet they're also encompassed under original sin in that they're descendants of Adam who inherit the passions from Adam and eventually will commit an actual sin. That's what Romans 5 means. And Meyendorff demonstrates that this is precisely where Augustine got it wrong. And that's why multiple great church fathers after this time period, like St. Photius, point out that this is incorrect in Augustine. And so there's just all these people who have no idea what they're talking about, and they just run around on Twitter endlessly quote mining, and they only have like one or two things that they go to, and they just repeat that incessantly, and they never talk about or explain any of this other stuff. Common sense. What's up, dog? Welcome, everybody.
Not much. How you doing? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's pretty fascinating how much, I call them the church nephews because I think that they taught a lot of things that just weren't taught by Christ and the apostles, like the Trinity, for example.
I mean, the Trinity is taught, for example, in every chapter of the Gospel of John. We lectured through the whole book. So where do you get that?
It's not ever taught. I mean, it's inferred, but nobody tries to teach you or make the case that God's three persons ever.
I mean, it's immediately taught by the post-apostolic fathers. So what do you mean? We did a whole...
It's not taught by Jesus. It's not taught
Hold
by
on.
Christ
You said nobody ever taught this.
in the Bible, in the Gospel, yes.
Well, you mean the terminology?
No, a teaching of it. Like God is actually three persons. Nobody...
Well, if the New Testament says... Hold on. If the New Testament says that the Father is God and is He, and if the Son is God and is He, and if the Holy Spirit is God and is He, then that's teaching three persons.
No, that's Moses is also called Elohim. Judges are called Elohim.
Elohim has nothing to do with the New Testament terminology where Jesus is called Yahweh and the Tetragrammaton is used of Him. So it has nothing to do with Elohim.
He's never called Yahweh in the New Testament.
He is, absolutely. It says, I am that I am, multiple times in the Gospel of John, which I just quoted to you. In John 1, he's called God. He's called the Logos of God.
No, it doesn't say in the beginning was the Son. No.
It's who's the Logos?
It doesn't say that. John tells
Who is the Logos?
It's God's Word. God's Word belongs to God. It's not
Who
Jesus.
does John identify that person as?
At the baptism, Christ becomes the Logos.
No. In John 1, not his baptism.
Yeah, he does. He tells
You're not answering my question. In John 1, who is it identified as?
God's Word belongs to Him. It's not another
You're
person.
just repeating your position. I'm asking a specific question about John 1.
Yeah.
So you're not going to answer it.
Says, I am going to. It's the Word belongs to God. It's with God. It's not another person.
It says He. What does He refer to in grammar?
It's personified like God's wisdom is she.
Yeah, but that it's identified in this chapter that's who became flesh is this word in John 1:14.
Right. We know that the Word became flesh at the baptism. It tells you that.
No. This is talking about His birth. He became flesh when He took on the nature from Mary that He assumed.
No. John
yes, it
1:14,
is.
John 1:14.
It says
became flesh.
In John 1:8, who is the one that's eternally begotten in verse 18?
It's not Jesus.
Who is the one? Who is that? So in verse 18, it's not Jesus, even though it says it's Jesus.
Well, different translations say Son, not God. See?
No one has seen God at any time, but the only begotten Son, who is in present tense the bosom of the Father, has exegeted or declared Him in the Greek.
Right. Yeah.
What do you mean, right? Yeah, that's refuting what you said.
No.
Who is that? Who is that in John 1:18?
It's Jesus Christ is in the bosom of the Father.
Exactly.
Now.
Is that not? And it's not the same word from 3 verses earlier.
No, we don't ever see the Son in the Old Testament.
Okay. Jesus Himself says that He's the one that spoke to Moses. What do you mean He's not in the Old Testament?
He didn't say that.
Yes, He does. He says that. Yes, He does. Yeah, He says that Moses wrote about me. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 3 that when Moses went up on the mountain, he talked face to face with Christ.
No.
Yes, he does. What do you mean? No, you're just saying no. 2 Corinthians 3 says
you
that.
can't ever show the Son in the Old Testament alive, doing anything, being worshipped.
What are you talking about? Who is the angel of the Lord? He's every one of the theophanies.
That doesn't ever say Jesus was the angel of the Lord.
Yes, it does. Jesus identifies himself in John 5-9 to the Pharisees as the one who appeared and ate with Abraham. As the one who... All right, you're just a liar. Let's get out of here.
No, he doesn't say that.
Yes, he does. You're a liar. We've lectured through the entirety of all of these Torah passages on the theophany. This is complete nonsense.
By the way, just repeating no is not an argument.
Yeah, he just said no about 20 times and repeated his position when I gave him literally all the text that refute what he's saying. So he's just repeating like made up Arian nonsense. What's up? Ruby or something?
Yes, hello. I actually I had a question, if that's okay.
Uh-huh.
So I'm a former Jehovah's Witness, and I recently converted to Orthodoxy, and I still feel like I have certain questions about Mary, Armageddon, and the resurrection. So, really quickly, Mary, why does it matter whether or not she was a virgin after Jesus was born? And about Armageddon, I still struggle with Armageddon, as if, is it real? Is it going to happen? Is it literal? Is it symbolic? And then with the resurrection, I still struggle with, like, what happens to us after we die? And are we going to be resurrected on a paradise earth? Or are we just going to go to heaven? Like,
no, so the resurrection is a new creation of the entire universe. In terms of Mary, I made a whole 40-minute video that I would say to go and watch, so that I'm not trying to be dismissive. It's just that it's a whole lot of, like, you know, things to rehearse in each one of these topics. They're very vast. So watch my Mary video, which is 40 minutes on the Theotokos, and that argues from the Bible why all the Marian doctrines are the case. Then I would say watch my video on the beast and the resurrection, which is about preterism and how we don't have to be in this sort of, you're an XJW, so we don't have to have this like end times fear, sensationalist type position. There will be an end times, there will be, you know, a final antichrist, but I have extensive podcasts on all of those specific topics, so go check those out, because those are pretty vast topics there. Raphael, what's up, dude? We got hold on one second. Jonathan Dinan, $5. Crucible Raid, hey, what's up? Welcome, everybody. Appreciate you guys coming on over. Da Cheap Chimp, $5 for the Cringe Core Lord. Thank you. Jaden Day, I appreciate the $10, but I don't think I can read that super chat. $5 if you want to come ask it somewhere else on a different format, maybe. Let's see. Iranian J, $3. Will you debate or discuss Dr. Khalil about Islamic Neoplatonism? I doubt it. I don't have time for that kind of a formal debate. Also, I don't think that you can go watch his debate with Shamoon. EB, $5. I'm Orthodox converted, but I'm still addicted to certain sins. Personal advice. Any personal advice besides talk to my spiritual father? I mean, you just have to keep battling. Everybody's going to keep battling our passions, so don't get discouraged. What's up, Raphael?
So, just context, I'm Orthodox, and I just want to run back on the original sin/guilt topic, right? Mm-hmm. So I came up I didn't come up with it, but I was thinking, would Saint Varus and Saint Cleopatra like kind of refute the original guilt claim? If you know I don't know off the top of my head what's so Saint Varus, basically he was a martyr who prayed for posthumously, he prayed for Saint Cleopatra's deceased child who was unbaptized, right? And she received a vision, you know, where her child was in heaven, you know. So I mean, I just think that the like visions of and claims of saints post divine revelation, I'm not saying they're not true. I just don't know how strong they are in theological argumentation. And then to add on to that little thing, because if you made that like some kind of knockdown argument, you could conceivably use, you know, these kinds of stories of lives of the saints to prove anything. And that's what a lot of these people do, is like they'll just go fish out some random crazy story or some obscure thing, and then all of a sudden it proves their pet heresy. Right.
I would just be leery of that as a method, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. and then it doesn't stop there though with Saint Varus. Like for example, during the time of troubles in Russia, Saint Hermogenes of Moscow actually told the people of Russia to ask intercessory prayers to Saint Varus on behalf of their deceased children who were unbaptized. So, to claim that the Orthodox Church was was all wrong before that council or whatever the guy was saying before is just kind of dumb. Well,
it'd be schismatic. I mean, that's a schismatic attitude.
Yeah.
But yeah, these are some good points too. And I mean, we put in our Discord many times that there's open prayers, there's liturgical prayers for unbaptized infants and so forth. So, Heroes Workshop, $5. Jesus turned water into wine. Muhammad turned child into bride. That's a good point. $5. Will you debate Pologia? People keep asking me this. I mean, tell them I don't know who it is. So, yeah, sure, whatever. People think that I set up all these debates. Dude, nobody wants to come debate. So, I don't know what. I mean, that isn't, insane. Sight Siege? What's up, dog? We hit, shout out to all that audience from the Crucible. Appreciate you guys. We got over 2,000. We got 2,200. Welcome, everybody. Unmute, dude. Hey, Jamie. Jamie, is this your first time on the internet? I need a ginger chew. Can't take it. Are you going to unmute, man? What's up?
Oh, are you talking to me?
I guess so. What's up?
Oh, howdy there. Yeah, let me see. I'm an ex-cradle Catholic. I think that's a term for it. I just had this question. Well, first off, can you hear me? Because I know my eye is weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hear this constantly from Orthodox guys saying that that Catholics practice idolatry by praying to Mary. So my question is,
you're trolling.
Well, how so?
You can't be serious.
Well,
no, I've never heard Orthodox call Catholics idolatrous because of Mary. I mean, potentially the Roman Catholic doctrines of co-redemptrix could lead to that, but I don't know. That sounds like somebody joking around. Taron, what's up? That was somebody doing a goofy voice.
Hi, good afternoon.
What's up, man?
Quick question. So I've been, following some of the debates and the presuppositionalist debates specifically. And my question is, why are metaphysical presuppositions not brought up in debates?
I bring them up in almost every debate. So what are you talking about?
Well, it seems to me that everyone uses the kind of Aristotelian metaphysic, where they get up their categories. But Christian metaphysics seems like it's based on relationship first and knowledge in the context of relationship.
Yeah, I think you can make that argument, and we've used that line of argumentation before.
So, for example, if you're arguing with someone, they have a relationship with this idea that they have, which is and so their communication with you is just rationalizing their, I would say, affection to that idea.
Okay.
So meaning that, and that's why it's more of a spiritual issue that's so much integrated with all these conversations. So people's positions is not entirely rational, but it's really kind of a spiritual connection to something.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, and I think a lot of people don't understand that their issues might in fact be spiritual and not intellectual, but sometimes that's difficult to convince people of, and so usually debates are for the sake of the audience, not the opponent, and that's why debates are usually focused on whether the arguments were sound or not. So, but I think you're right about what's oftentimes going on in the soul of the person debating. Kostia, what's up, man? By the way, if you guys want to call in, welcome everybody. We got 2,000-ish. You can call in through the Twitter link right there if you have a debate challenge. If you're a Protestant, if you're a Roman Catholic, if you're a Muslim, if you're an atheist, it's open for them. use the link and hit request to speak, and I'll bring you up. Just got to unmute yourself when you get brought up. What's up, Kostya? Unmute.
Yo, what's up?
What's on your mind?
I want to say pretty excited about your work with Sam Hyde. That should be pretty cool.
Yeah. What do you think of the first 2 episodes? I co-wrote on those 2.
Of the new World Peace, or what is it?
No, the Sam Hyde show. Dear Elon and Dear Vivek.
Oh, I didn't know you were involved with those.
Yeah, I
That's pretty
co-wrote
sweet.
those.
Yeah, those were great.
Thanks. Could you make me a
copy? Yeah, viral too. Yeah, congrats. That's sweet.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Orthodox jurisdiction, if you don't mind.
I mean, I don't mind answering that question, but I mean, we're not really doing Orthodox problems and inner disputes. Is it about like where do I go to church, or what's the question?
Well, I mean, I know you're like RoCore. I just wanted to get some more take. Personally, I'm a believer in canonical territory, and I know the U.S. is a complex situation right now, but isn't it?
What do you mean canonical? I don't know what you mean.
Like, in terms of jurisdiction, should have strict geographic lines.
Okay, but I mean, America is an oddball, unique situation that doesn't fit history, so we don't want.
That's kind of how canon law works too. There are rules that are applied, in most situations, but you're going to get cases that it's like, well, it's not going to work here. And that's
absolutely. That economy is necessary, but as laity, I mean, shouldn't we work towards meeting that norm?
Well, the problem is that in America, the U.S. State Department and the CIA try to have a huge influence on the jurisdictions and try to tell them what to do and in what direction to go, which, as you can imagine, is Skittles and that kind of stuff. So, we don't want one giant jurisdiction right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I was in a Go Arch church a couple weeks ago, and they had pictures of like their metropolitan with the Pope all around. It was weird.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But
that's where if you have the U.S. State Department running and telling all the Orthodox churches under one giant jurisdiction what to do, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, I just want to get your thoughts. I know you're a RoCore. Like, OCA has autocephaly. To me, that's a pretty strong argument. But yeah, just something I've been thinking about.
A strong argument for what?
For its jurisdictional kind of primarity, I guess.
Well, I mean, the Russians were here first, so like, what? I don't understand the logic of that.
Well, RoCore doesn't have autocephaly though.
But what would that have to do with that? You said priority. Well, the Russians came to this continent first. So how do you determine priority just because the OCA is supposedly autocephalous? I don't get it.
I mean, it's a good point. I'm just trying to think through these items.
Also, the OCA wants recognition from the EP. So. Anyway, I mean, I'm not trying to be a douchebag. No. I'm not into canonical stuff. I think that all stuff's super boring. So, I mean, it's not my domain. You can go ask somebody who knows canon law. I don't know. Dougal, what's up? Dougal, what's up, dude? It's open forum if you're.
Hey, can you hear me?
What's up?
First off, I just want to say I'm a big fan, and I've been watching some of your videos of late, you and Sam Shamoons and Christian Prince. I just have a question about orthodoxy, because if I'm being honest, I've never, a few months ago, I actually never heard of orthodoxy and what its like main difference to Roman Catholic Catholicism is. So I did a bit of research, and is it true that basically the main belief is that something about the Holy Spirit, and that the Father can only send it and not the Son?
Yeah, the Father is the sole cause in the Trinity, and the Son does not participate in his hypostatic property of being cause, which is unique to him. That's filioque, correct.
Okay, and I have some questions about just the
So
Bible in general.
It's open debate today. I'm not trying to be rude. It's not open Q&A for we're looking for people who disagree. So if you disagree about Protestantism, Catholicism, atheism, and it's hard to understand what you're saying, man. I'm not trying to be rude. Matt, what's up? Robert Dreyer, $5. I need a comment. Relational ontology approaches to Christianity, like making God just a relation, like Zizilus and Balthazar. I think you can go too far with relational ontology, but I mean, it's relational when you read Father Staniloy in Orthodox Dogmatics. But no, I think people like Zizilus go too far with it. What's up, man? Matt?
Hey, Jay, how are you?
Good, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Jay, how are you?
Good, what's on your mind today?
Just one quick question, and then I suppose just I'm a Protestant or Pentecostal, but really love Orthodoxy and love what you do as well.
You're cutting out, man.
I was having a discussion with someone regarding tag.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay, you there? Tag?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
What about tag?
It's merely a language.
You're gone, man. I can't hear you. Sorry. So it's open forum. We got almost 90 people. If you would like to debate, you can come to the head of the line and you hit request to speak. I'll remind everybody in the chat we've got we got 1,300 now. If you want to call in through the Twitter link right here. I'll put it in the chat again for you guys if you're watching on the live stream chat. Right here. Call in right there. Hit request to speak. And I'll bring you up. He said Pentecostal. I was hoping we could maybe get into that because, you know, when you go to Acts and you look at the book of Acts, if you look at Acts 2, the only way that Acts 2 makes sense is if this is known languages. And that matters because it means it's not gibberish. So, for example, in Isaiah 28 and 29, we read about these events that are going to happen in the Messianic era. So this is a prophecy of Pentecost. The Lord has poured out upon you, and this is talking about the disobedience of the Jews at this time and also in the time of Christ, the Messianic era. Pause and wonder, blind yourselves and be drunk. Blind they are drunk, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with intoxicating drink. The Lord has poured out upon them a spirit of deep sleep and has closed your eyes, namely the prophets. He's covered your heads, namely the seers. And so in other words, this is a contrast to the pouring out of the Spirit upon the apostles at Pentecost, as we'll see in a minute, contrasted to the pouring out of a delusion and a blindness to those that don't believe. The whole vision is like words of a book that are sealed, and men deliver it to one who is literate and say, read this, please. And he says, I can't, it's sealed. Then the book is delivered to one who is illiterate, and they say, read this. And he says, I can't, I'm illiterate. Therefore the Lord said, inasmuch as these people draw near to me with their hearts, with their mouths, and they honor me with their lips, their hearts are far from me. Jesus quotes that very passage, describing it as a contemporary prophecy for his day. So we know this is not just Isaiah's day. It also applies to the Messianic arrival era. Therefore, behold, I will do a marvelous thing among these people, a wonder. The wisdom of the wise will perish. The understanding of the prudent will be hidden. And that those who seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord, they say, who sees us, who knows it? Surely those things turn around. And then it goes on to say that God will provide for them. He will fulfill his promises to them. They will eventually hallow his name. and they will learn true doctrine. And then we go back to 28, and it says that who will teach knowledge? Who will make to understand this message? This is the chapter right before. Those weaned from milk and drawn from the breasts, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little. For with a stammering lip and another tongue he will speak to this people. Okay? This is a prophecy of Pentecost and the fulfillment of Pentecost, that when the apostles preach, right, this will be the outpouring that Joel prophesied. And in contrast, the Jews will have a delusion and a blindness poured out upon them in this generation as a punishment. Right? So these are prophecies of Pentecost, but it is not gibberish. It is another tongue by which he speaks to this people. And that means it's a known language. So when I come over to Acts 2 and I compare that to what's in Isaiah 28 and 29, and we know it's a prophecy of that day, this is not gibberish. It's not an angel language, which Pentecostals all believe. It's known languages. How do I know it's known languages? Well, if you go to the Orthodox liturgy, especially on the day of Pentecost, you'll read about how it's the reversal of Babel. Babel is where God divides the nations and confuses the languages. Here is the reversal of that, but that reversal is in the kingdom of the church, you see. So it cannot be gibberish languages, or else it is not a sign to the Jews that God is speaking to them through the hearing universally. All people there are hearing the same message. That's the miracle. Thus, Pentecost is not gibberish like Pentecostals do. In other words, if it's gibberish, it destroys all of these prophetic fulfillment elements. You want to try again? Furthermore, go ahead.
Yeah, so happy to talk on Pentecostalism, but I just wanted to quickly ask you about tag. When I was having the talk with someone,
okay,
when I was talking about logic, his argument was logic is merely just a language that we interpret. And I was trying to work a way around that. I was trying to get into kind of like the meta logic that you talk of. What would be just your approach on that? And then I can talk about Pentecostalism if you want.
Well, I mean, to just say it's just a language doesn't do much to, I mean, that makes it just something subjective or tokenized or a human creation. And so it's not actually talking about the ontological status of it. And it's not going to do him much good to just say it's just that, right? Because how is it universal if it's just a social construct or a human construct?
Well, I said to him, so does that mean then if there's no human minds, then that logic doesn't exist? And then he just went into basically, well, how do you justify the words that you're using now? And I was just like, what? So that kind of threw me a bit.
How do you justify the words you're using? How would that?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I know. Anyway. But yeah, just on your point on Acts, I agree with you as that it is other languages to the Jews. That is a sign from Isaiah.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also probably, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but you've also got the gift of interpretation of tongues as well.
Yeah, that's people who have the ability to understand and interpret languages.
Yeah, but would that also apply to Acts? So, for example, would they also be interpreting the tongue that they all speak, and they're hearing it all in their own language?
I mean, it seems to be saying that in Acts 2. Acts 2 at Pentecost is a unique miracle, again, reversing Babel, and it's a sign to the Jews in Isaiah 28, 29, and other passages, right? So that's, I think, a unique situation where we're not going to be seeing Pentecosts like Acts 2 for the rest of the church, period. Acts 2 is the fulfillment of the Feast of Booths and the Feast of Weeks of the Old Testament calendar. So it's a unique redemptive historical event. It's not to be repeated. except that in the Orthodox Church, we do believe that chrismation is your own personal Pentecost. So in that sense, it's repeated, but it's not repeated for the collective church.
Yeah, I mean, the next point we see is with Cornelius, when they are.
Yeah, but again, that's not Pentecost. That's a sign to the Jews that Gentiles can receive the Holy Spirit. That's a unique redemptive historical event during this transition period from Old Testament to New Testament.
Yeah, but you see that so back to the Acts, they speak in other tongues. Some people say, I can't understand this stuff, they're all drunk or whatever, but other people say, no, we hear them in our own language.
Right.
Now,
that's a miracle.
You can either take the position that, tell me if I'm wrong. But
okay, but hold on. But none of that has anything to do with Pentecostalism. Okay, today's Pentecostalism is like Montanism. Are you familiar with the heresy of Montanism?
Yeah, but it's without and that's where NAR and all that kind of stuff creeps back in as well.
What? What is that?
The NAR, New Apostolic Reformation guys, the prophetic apostolic guys.
I don't know who any of that is. No. Are you talking about like the Azusa Street revival in California?
No. This is recent. This is like through guys like Peter Wagner, Bill Johnson.
I don't know who any of these people are. I mean, what I'm getting at is like this is all old heresy condemned in the days of the 2nd century. It's that 3rd century of the church. So I don't understand like what. I mean, that right there should be the undoing of the whole thing. Like Pentecostalism is totally false.
Well, no, they were condemned for the prophecies of being on par with Scripture, not with ecstatic speech or
that's not true. That's not true. There's no new divine revelation after the death of the apostles. And there's many places in the New Testament that make it clear that there's not going to be new ongoing divine revelations. And if that's the case,
I agree.
Well, then that means that Pentecostalism is false, because Pentecostalism posits that God directly gives you new revelations.
On what has already been revealed, bringing greater understanding.
No, there's plenty. That's not true. There's countless Pentecostals who claim to prophesy and give words of prophecy to people individually, and it's all baloney. It's all delusion. Yeah. And by the way, many of them are not. Look, it's not in the Orthodox Church. I mean, you can't have this stuff without orthodoxy. So that right there discounts all of it.
So am I hearing you right? In orthodoxy, there is no more kind of prophetic utterances.
There are miracles and there's clairvoyance, but there is no new divine revelation. And so that cuts off.
We would believe that as well as Pentecostals. We wouldn't believe
but
that
that's not
God
true.
Has,
no, you do not. You believe that there's people speaking with the Holy Spirit, and if the Holy Spirit speaks, that's divine revelation. But the people in Pentecostalism who pronounce word of prophecy or whatever, like that's not the Holy Spirit speaking.
Yeah, got you. So you mean like, for example, just a case example, like when a lot of the prophetic guys in the Pentecostal circles basically said, Trump's going to get in 2020.
It doesn't matter. Like I've been to Pentecostal churches before. I've been to many different groups of Pentecost. Yeah, I've been to different Pentecostal groups. And I mean, if you're not even mostly,
did you wave?
All right, I'm not gonna. All right, this is enough of this. I mean, this is just so. Don't yell at me, Kemuel. It's the heresy of Montanism, and if you disagree, well, then we'll have to disagree. I don't know what else to tell you. And Montanus was condemned also for ecstatic expression. Let's read this. Convinced that the end of the world was at hand. That's most Pentecostals. The New Jerusalem was about to descend to the village of Pepuza. So he's a premillennial John Hagee Pentecostal. Montanus established a rigorous morality to purify Christians and detach them from their material desires. Criticism of Montanus and his movement consequently emphasized the new prophecy's unorthodox ecstatic expression and his rejection of the bishop's role as divinely appointed. So it is premised on the rejection of apostolic succession and authority in the church. That was rejected way back in the 2nd century when the church rejected Montanism. And all Pentecostalism is this same delusion represented. And if you disagree, I'm sorry. It's like, it should be clear as day. I don't know what to tell you. What's up, man? Kemuel? Unmute. Kemuel?
Oh, hello. Sorry. It's Camwell.
Okay. What's up, man?
Oh, man, someone's texting me. Sorry, let me... I thought you said Camwell. I just didn't hear
Oh,
it.
I don't know how to pronounce that. What's up?
It's all right. It's all right, Jay. It's all right. Why do you keep... A lot of the time when you speak about, like, foreign influence into the Orthodox Church, you always point to NATO. Like, why do you do this?
It's because I'm a shill and I work for Putin. So good job. You want to clip that? Put it on your 200 follower channel.
No.
Put it on your 200 follower channel. Paula, what's up? Paula, you want to unmute?
Oh yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh. Are you drinking wine?
No, not at all. I'm just
Box
kind of
wine?
embarrassed. I've never called in. No boxed wine. No. So apropos of all the Pentecostal stuff, I wanted to thank you because like I ended up becoming Orthodox because I listened to your stuff for years, and it's actually kind of odd because I'm from a Romanian family, but we're Baptists.
Interesting.
Well, they're Baptists from Transylvania, and all the people I grew up around that were Romanian.
Baptist Dracula. Baptula.
Pretty much,
Dractist. Baptula. Holy Order of Baptist Dracula followers. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's been really interesting because growing up, like I was like really alienated from Orthodoxy, and until I was about like 28 or so, I didn't go into an Orthodox church. And it was only like watching your content. I don't know how I found you. And then also like interacting with like different people that I would like encounter that were discovering Orthodoxy as well. That I finally decided to go in. Anyway, so that's my backstory.
Well, good. That's great.
I know a lot of Pentecostals and Baptists who are Romanian, if you can believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I the first time I went to Orthodox church, it was at St. Dracula Baptist Church.
St. Dracula Baptist.
I'm joking. Go ahead.
No, like, yeah, that Dracula thing's annoying too because, yeah, we're like from Transylvania.
I took the Dracula pill years ago, so I suspect that he was Orthodox and he's based and he fought Muslims. So I don't believe I think Dracula's a good guy.
No, he was cool, but I wonder if the Pope also supported him. So I don't know. Like,
well, he was in a weird situation of like between Uniate and Orthodox, so I don't know exactly. But somebody was saying somebody that was his predecessor, Stephen the Great, or somebody who's some king that fought Muslims, was Orthodox.
Oh, they were all like, of course, all those princes then, in Moldova or whatever, And by the way, Dracula himself, not to get too off topic from the debate.
The chat is having a blast with it. The Dracula Baptists have evening services. The morning services are dead, and they're dead because you got your blood sucked out of you, dog.
No, it's so annoying to be Romanian and from Transylvania. Everyone comes up and talks about Dracula because he was from Wallachia and he was a prisoner of Hungarians in Transylvania. So I don't think he was even like Transylvanian prince, really. And Bram Stoker made a bunch of crap up about him, so I don't know. Anyway,
well, what's on your mind?
Okay, so that's my background. So I know a lot of Romanians who are really zealous evangelicals in America now.
Father Deacon Ananias knows about this too.
Probably he does because he's in
I know
Romanian
he does. We've talked about it, yeah.
Yeah. So it's really hard to like sometimes coming out to them as Orthodox is like kind of awkward because they think it's idolatrous. They've had experience in communist Romania being the persecuted people who stood up for their faith. And when they think of the Orthodox, they think of like drunkards, adulterers, people who don't like really follow the faith. I don't know. They have a bad experience of it.
Yeah, I could tell you all about it.
Yeah.
Well, Father Deacon was the Baptist drunkard, so he knows all about it. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you were a Baptist drunkard because some of them were teetotalers.
Found out about it. And guess what? It was Pentecostals. They they were Romanian Pentecostals.
Oh, they're so like pure, and like they call themselves pocăiți, which is like I don't know, like what does that mean, like reformed or repenters or something?
I don't know, but I asked the Orthodox Romanian community, like, how did this even happen? Because I just thought, I'm like, this is bizarre.
Well, do you want to hear about my grandpa? What's their explanation?
So, a couple different things. First of all, none of these people were properly catechized. They were brought up, they probably had weird ideas, and like you said, they might have seen problems with the state during the Chechnya regime and stuff like that, and associated with, but they're ignorant. Now, what happened is people in the United States made a huge missionary effort, especially the Pentecostals, to go over and prey on these ignorant people. Mm-hmm. Now, how they came over is here's the additional fact. So if you're in another country, you've got to get a visa and have somebody sponsor you. Mm-hmm. And so they have what they call visa families. So it was a strategic...
Oh, God, I'm from a visa family for sure, probably.
Yeah, so it was a strategic attack in which the Pentecostals and other Baptists worked basically as missionary from this to receive and be visa families, and then they integrated them into the community, and being ignorant and not catechized properly, they told them, like, oh, well, that was all idolatry, and that was all... And the third important fact, too, and you see this with other cultures, too, this Americanism kind of mythology. Many cultures think America is just the most wonderful, and a lot of people have shame or they're leaving their country behind. There's issues, and they don't want to be seen as foreigners. I think it's just kind of a natural tendency. And because of that, they try to adopt certain Americanism. This was become a huge issue among the Arabic Christians, especially the Antiochians, and then really with like the Coptics and stuff like that. They just started, like, Coptics will do like praise music and stuff like that. And the Coptic people told me, they were like, oh, it's because we're totally insecure and we don't like our Egyptian heritage and we want to be American. And they see this kind of narrative of this Americanism, what it means to be American and evangelical, and they want that. So I think it's a combination of all those kinds of things that lead to this.
Yeah, and I wouldn't ascribe a lot of malice to some of these people, because some of the Baptist and Pentecostal missionaries and so on probably would have been trying to like do good, and they would have been told that in communism, oh, these people couldn't have Bibles, they were in an atheist state.
No, the CIA utilized the Pentecostals, the Evangelicals, the Baptists throughout the Cold War, absolutely, as a form of soft power. We've talked about that a lot.
I'm sure they did, but the awareness on the level of like individual...
No, I know that they don't. So it wouldn't be all of them. It would be so in general it would just be soft power, but there would be specific, agents here and there. I'm not saying everybody who's a missionary is a CIA operative. No, it's just soft power, but then some of those people are actually operatives.
Well, I could talk about this for like a long time. I don't want to like bore you, but like even my grandpa, that he was very wild as a young man, and when he became like, okay, like repented and whatever, this story goes in our family. He went to the local Orthodox priest to share about his like his like, I don't know how to say it, because he had a bit of like a bit of a spiritual experience. And anyway, and from what I heard, the priest, like, he started to debate with him about like scripture, and the priest banged him on the head with the Bible, and and so my grandpa like left and he became Baptist, and then that's how he met my grandma.
He was trying to get the Baptist demon out of him.
Yeah, he was trying to like, but see, here's the thing. some of the priests at that time, I mean, like, first of all, Romania probably always had a problem with, like, uneducated priests in a way, because they would have been drawn from the, you know, just regular people.
Yes, we had a whole argument yesterday in my comments that somebody was trying to argue that you have to believe in vampires or you're not Orthodox. I was just like, give me a break.
Oh, God, that's so
And
stupid.
he was arguing, but he was actually pulling up all this, like, old Romanian superstition. I'm not joking.
Strigoi and whatever.
Yeah, and that there was, in 2003, there was a village guy who dug up bodies to destroy the heart and the organs, and then you have to burn it, and then the villagers have to drink the ashes. I'm not joking, and like the church told them to stop doing it, but the villagers think that it's real, and you have to believe in vampires.
Well, I mean,
the funny one is, I'm gonna ask you, Koran. The Koran, the like wind. That
Koran. Oh my God, yeah, they love that. They're great.
I remember when I first heard that, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So there was
it's a draft. It's just a draft.
Yes.
Is this why they like Pentecostal? Like, is Pentecostalism there because the Romanians?
It's a mighty wind.
Like the Romanians are like super. I'm not dissing all Romanians. I'm just saying
No,
like.
but like they have witches there. You know that, right? They have witches that like threatened the government and stuff when they wanted to tax them, and like I think there's a whole like. No,
you gotta pay that witch tax. That's a 20% witch tax. Hey, we got a 20% witch tax in America too. I pay it every year.
I had a friend that was like, "Oh man, I'm sick," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, what happened?"
A strigoi.
I got a cold, and I was like, "How did that happen?" He's like, "I went to the beach and my feet got wet," and I was like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "And then the wind blew on my feet."
I'm sorry, is that unusual? I grew up hearing this. Is that weird?
For Americans, it's like, yeah, that was the first time I've ever heard. I'm like, that's not what cold means.
You gotta chill. Like, sure, everyone talks like that in like old.
Yeah, and there was all kinds of stuff that I was like, you actually believe that? Oh yeah, man, never leave, because especially like places where Jay lives, or like if you're from California, it's all about leaving your windows and doors open to get a breeze.
Yeah. Well, I'm in California, so yeah. I mean, 30 years I'm in California, and can you imagine? I never walked into an Orthodox church because I was like, oh no, you know, I grew up Christian, but I was like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like Protestant church. It's like
what's your parish, by the way, if you don't mind me, doxing yourself?
I could say, I mean, like, I go to a Greek church now. I know. I keep hearing about how Go Arch is, you know, whatever, but it's local. So, and I actually got baptized in Ireland.
Oh wow!
In a Greek church, and I've gone to Romanian churches, Russian churches, whatever. And I used to go to Riverside at St. Andrew, where Father Josiah Trenum is. So I've been all over now.
All right, so I appreciate your comments. I'm not trying to be rude, but Paul, I appreciate it.
Can I just ask you really quick? If I'm talking to Pentecostals or Baptists, this is what I originally called for, in addition to all this interesting cultural stuff, was I don't know how to, like, reach them. They, like, don't really... I mean, I don't know if it's not my job, really, too, but they're kind of puzzled by me. They don't understand, like... And they'll bring up stuff. Always they're bringing up Hebrews, or they're like, why is there a priesthood? All this stuff. So if you have any tips of, like, things to tell them...
Hebrews teaches that there is still a priesthood, and it's the priesthood of Melchizedek. The New Testament teaches apostolic succession, so you could look up the discussions that we've done on apostolic succession and tradition. You know, go listen to the debate that I did with Dr. Branson and Dale the Protestant, because we go really deep into tradition and how tradition is necessary to have the Bible. So all these people are just assuming that, like, oh, I just quote the Bible and that's all that's needed, but then they believe
it. Jay, you're missing the point. See, that's all too intellectual. So all those things are really important to say to them, but they're not going to hear it unless you get a strobe light and a fog machine and a guitar while you're telling them this. Okay. Because that's the way they understand stuff, right? You've got to bring strobe lights and fog machines and wiggle around and do praise music as you're telling them all these facts. And then they'll go, I got it. I totally understand what you're saying.
Shout out to Dimphna. She became a member. Shout out to Tiki Tack, $5. Siege D's voice. That's just his voice. He's a good guy. Well, he can call back in then. 0-1 let's see, I lost this. Zero Cool, $3. Thank you so much, man. Tony 116, $5. I used to be Pentecostal. Those people thought they were prophets. Of course. I mean, they believe that they are a continuation of and have the gift of prophecy. So this guy telling me that, no, they don't believe that. They're not prophets. No, yes, they do believe that. And they might say, well, it's not revelation like the way the New Testament's revelation. If the Holy Spirit is speaking through you, how could it not be divine revelation? Is that the fallible speaking of the Holy Spirit, but what's in Scripture is revelation? It's infallible? You see how silly this is. If God is speaking, it's not fallible. So for you to say that you have the gift of prophecy and you speak for God, no, you don't. I'm sorry. We don't believe that. So it's nonsense, and it doesn't exist outside the Orthodox Church anyway. So, and I meant to say too, it's not just a matter of, I mean, the Old Testament office of a prophet is done. And when Paul says in the New Testament that some people have the gift of prophecy, it's not an Old Testament prophet. Jesus says in Luke 16 that John the Baptist was the end of the prophets. There's no more Old Testament prophets. There are elders, saints, people like that who have clairvoyance, but that's not new divine revelation. Otherwise, the faith was not once for all delivered to the saints. Otherwise, I couldn't use Paul's test to test the spirits. Test the spirits to see whether they're of God. What's the test? Do they teach according to what Paul taught Galatians 1? You see. And the whole thing is built on emotions. It's not God speaking through you when you do a bunch of gibberish. It's your own emotions. And the book of Jeremiah even says that the heart is deceitful and wicked, and the false prophets prophesy a thing of their own imagination, of their own dreams. So the very things that a real prophet like Jeremiah says about false prophets applies perfectly to Pentecostals and Charismatics. Upzis 699, I can't go to church, it's boring. I got to be stimulated by 24/7. A lot of Protestants think that those lights in the churches are gay. I hope you're joking. Gifted one membership, David James Flood. Thank you so much. All right, let's see who's next. So we're looking for people who disagree. If you disagree, you go to the head of the line. I'm not mad at the people who've come to ask questions. That always ends up being what happens. But preferably, it's not catechumen day. It always fills up with catechumens. So we're looking preferably for people who disagree. If you're a Protestant, if you're a Roman Catholic, if you're a Muslim, if you're an atheist, if you're a Mormon, you're a libertarian, feminist, Marxist, you go to the head of the line. But just try to make arguments. I know that's very difficult. Very difficult to get people to make an argument. An argument is not like that Arian dude just saying no, 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 and asserting your position over and over. Kakuro, what's up?
Hello. Yeah. I'm sorry, but I came here to ask a couple of questions, man. After you went on
about what?
You said people should move to the front if they have a disagreement. But yeah, my question is what would be considered improper ecumenism? Because I know ecumenism is only allowed insofar as much it will lead someone to orthodoxy.
Well, no, that's not the defining. That's not the delineation. Because I could say, oh, I'm going to go hang out with my Protestant friend and go to his church with him for the next 5 years to try to get him to become Orthodox. No. You cannot participate in the public worship services of heterodox and schismatic groups. That's the easiest, borderline there. Knucklehead. Erica, $10. I just started reading Orthodox Dogmatic Theology. Thank you for the tip and helping me on my journey to Orthodoxy. Yeah, well, that's a kind of an advanced book, but if you find yourself able to read it, then more power to you. The cheap chimp, $5. This is for the cringe lord. Thank you so much, man. He knows how to recognize the true cringe lord. Thank you. Thank you. Knucklehead, you want to unmute or what's up, man?
Hey, I just didn't want to interrupt what you're saying there.
I can barely hear you, man. Can you speak up?
Sorry, yeah. Here I'm just about to be stopped driving, so it'll get a lot quieter too.
Okay.
Yeah, I was calling because A little while ago, I asked. I'm Orthodox, but a little while ago, I asked if the argument for against the papacy would be good if just say, would it be a good argument to say, why didn't Paul mention Peter or like the papacy in his letter to the Romans? I kind of think that that's a bad argument now, because at least because I got into a debate with a Roman Catholic, and he kind of pointed out. Again, I still think that it's. I don't believe in the papacy, but like if Peter was there, then maybe Peter already taught it, and that's why Paul didn't bring it up.
Well, first of all, that's an argument from silence, and secondly, oh, dude, come on. It's an argument from silence, and second, the argument is not just why doesn't Paul mention the papacy in the letter to the Romans. The argument is that Romans 11 warns the Church of Rome that they collectively as a church can be grafted out, which is impossible given the so-called Petrine succession and the doctrine of the Petrine charism and indefectibility. So why would you warn a church that's indefectible that they can be cut out of the covenant? So the argument is not all this stuff to do with why didn't Paul mention the papacy? That's not the argument. Warren G? What's up, dude? Seabass becomes a member. Shout out to the Chad members. We got Seabass joining us. Orthodoxy Zatar. Can another country invade an opposing nation's Bitcoin reserve like they would with gold? Well, I think that if a nation state is stacking Bitcoin, they probably have sufficient protocols in place such that it's stored in a secure way. They might use multi-sig. They might use some super difficult way to keep those seed phrases private. So this is an argument that Bitcoin proponents make, which is that when the world moves to a Bitcoin standard, if that happens, I think it's very likely, there will be less war. It's not going to solve all problems. It's not a silver bullet. There will be less war because it's way harder to get a hold of this asset than it is physical gold, physical property, physical treasure, land, right? Those things are much easily had in warfare than something that I can memorize a seed phrase and, oops, I forgot it. Right? So, the boating accident example, if you're familiar with that. Where can I sign up to be Orthodox? Go to your local Orthodox church to become Orthodox. It's not an online thing. Where can, let's see, he says for 7 Canadian, can I play on my church? Can I play on my phone in church? No, it would probably be better for you to go to a Lutheran church if that's what you're suggesting, rather than an Orthodox church playing on your phone. What's up, Warren? You're raising your hand. Go ahead. Unmute.
Okay. So I just want to ask you a question. So you're going to also debate libertarians, right?
Yeah, sure. That's on the list.
So I just want to ask you that, so you're in InfoWars, and why someone like Alex Jones is opposing Israel? So that's only from libertarian perspective that they're saying, funding for this is against libertarian.
Alex Jones and InfoWars has nothing to do with the topics. I don't know what you're talking about. Joel Davis, what's up? Sharif, $10 Canadian. Thank you so much, Sharif. Cody S, $5. Jay, would you say that Pentecostalism is just modern Montanism? Yes, sir. 100%. Vane, $5. Do you believe in the miracle of holy fire at the sepulcher? I don't have any position on it. I don't know. I've never been there. I haven't seen it, so I just don't know. Tonio, 116. No, we already read that one. Excuse me. JD became a member. Genezia, $10. Will you speak to Joe Atwell's theory on Caesar's Messiah? We already had a debate with this person on this goofy topic like 8 or 10 years ago. I'll pull you up the debate that I had with one of the proponents of this. It's what is that guy's name? It's Alex Sikaris. So if you go here, this guy argues the Joe Atwill thing from, it's actually 8 years ago technically. So there's my thoughts on that. You could also watch my podcast that I did on the beast and preterism. Go ahead. What's up, Joel?
Hey, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Hey, so I'm a Protestant looking into Orthodoxy right now, and my question is, how do the ecumenical councils not count as divine revelation? I've heard a lot of Protestant rebukes of how they are divine revelation in the sense that there's new information being conveyed that's binding to the church, and I just wanted to know what your response was to that.
Well, they're not revelation in the sense that, as Jude says, the faith was once for all delivered to the saints. So there's a finality to what we call the apostolic deposit, which is everything written and oral from the apostles. That deposit does not have new information added to it. It doesn't evolve. It doesn't change. It doesn't develop like Roman Catholics think. It's a single unified body of teachings expressed in things like the Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed, for example. So when we come to ecumenical councils, Athanasius says that the voice of the Holy Spirit spoke through the Council of Nicaea. So you can have a sense in which it's a restatement of, but there's no new revelations. So Nicaea is not a new revelation. It's a precise explication of what came before, that is the apostolic deposit. Thus, it is in no sense a new revelation.
Okay. I was just talking with my professor about that. That's I didn't think of it that way. Another question that I have is in regards to, how can we know what is true tradition versus what is false tradition? If a lot of these things, like for example, the Council of Nicaea, the Second Council of Nicaea, where there's iconography is discussed, and there's not a ton of information regarding iconography in the first 3 centuries. So how can we know that that's not like an accretion?
Well, okay, but that's also an argument from silence, and there is some information about iconography in the first 3 centuries. So the idea that there's not any, I'm not saying that you said that, but a lot of Protestants say there's no proof of that. There's not a lot of proof for the Protestant canon of Scripture in the first 3 centuries either. So there's a lot of things that even Protestants believe that there's scant evidence for in 1st, 2nd, 3rd century. So again, that kind of ends up being arguments from silence. Keep in mind, this is a period when the church is persecuted. So the church is underground. So they may not be as ostentatious in terms of the, luxuriousness of the ornate basilica when they're having to meet and do their services in the catacombs. But I've been to the catacombs. And when you go to the catacombs, guess what they have in there? They have images and they have altars. That's not Protestant. So the catacomb church, the 1st, 2nd, 3rd century, is not Protestant. Go to Rome and go look at the imagery that's drawn on the walls and where the altars are in the catacombs.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jake. God bless you.
Those are great questions. And also, I think Michael Garton has a new book out on imagery and icons in the first 3 centuries. I do not have the book yet, so I can't speak to it, but I've seen a lot of Orthodox people are talking about it. So that probably also addresses it. Also, I did a video in response to Gavin Ortland a while back. It was a brief 20-minute video where I addressed from the Protestant liturgy scholar Hugh Wybrew in his book Byzantine Liturgy. In the first few chapters, he actually addresses and rebuts most of Ortland's claims. So let me pull that up. First, here is the Beast System and Resurrection podcast I did 5 years ago. This one addresses a lot of those kind of early questions that we had about Jehovah's Witnesses. Do you need something? Can I help you? Okay. And then could you make me one more of these? Thank you. And on my Clips channel is this 20-minute summation of what's in the Hugh Wybrew book. So now I have longer podcasts discussing icons, but this right here is a brief response to Gavin Ortland. and it's citing the Hugh Wybrew book, Christian J. Dyer Refutes Protestant Gavin Orland. By the way, this might be the guy who has that baptism video. Maybe not. He doesn't have many videos, so that's not him. But anyway, this is a good video right here.
Or they venerate.
And you'll notice right there, like you have the Dura Europos churches and synagogues, how they were structured. You have what basically amounts to an altar rail in the west, or what becomes iconostasis in the east. You have an altar which is blocked off by the communion rail or the iconostasis. You have baptismal fonts in the basilicas that are converted into churches. So here's a easy 20-minute response to a lot of the Gavin Ortland types of claims. And this is from a Protestant scholar. That's why I always point out the Hugh Wybrew book is not written by an Orthodox person. It's written by a Protestant liturgical scholar. Fury, what's up, dude? Fury, are you there? Fury, you want to unmute? All right, he dropped off. If you disagree, go to the head of the line. So remember, we're not really doing FAQ, catechumen question day. That's for you to be catechized by your priest. I'm looking for Protestants, Catholics, atheists, Muslims, Mormons, libertarians, Marxists, feminists who disagree. Hebrew roots, Arians. You go to the head of the line. Manny. Money! Like Run Lola Run over here with Manny. So MKG asked for $6.99. If the forerunner is the last of the prophets bringing divine revelation. No. Last of the prophets in the sense of an Old Testament prophet. The role of a prophet like Isaiah or Moses or Hosea. Jesus says in Luke 16, the law and the prophets were until John. Since that time, the kingdom is preached. Kingdom is preached, which is the summation of all those things. So in a sense, yes, Agabus in the book of Acts is still a prophet. Paul is a prophet. Paul talks about the gift of prophecy, right? And I'm not saying that those aren't gifts. Those are gifts unique to particularly the intertestamental period to establish the church. But they're not prophets in the way that there's an office of the prophet of the Old Testament. Pentecostals believe that they are the office of prophets like Hosea or Isaiah, okay? They literally believe that. Most of them do. And they don't really see any difference or any discontinuity between them and the Old Testament prophets. I'm pointing out that Luke 16 refutes Mormons, it refutes Muslims, and all these groups that believe in new ongoing public divine revelation. You see. So the apostles' message is the finality of what all those prophets of the Old Testament were. They're all predicting this kingdom that's coming, this era and this time of the Messiah. When the Messiah comes, Jesus says in Luke 16, since then, the kingdom is preached. Meaning now that I'm here, I'm the kingdom. I'm the king. My church is the kingdom. That's what's preached now. That's the finality. That's the apostolic deposit. It includes these Old Testament revelations because that's all presaging and predicting the coming of this period. Rachel Wilson gives 5 memberships. Thank you, Rachel. Appreciate that. Upzis sends a couple more podcasts. Thank you so much. Sends a couple more super chats for $6.99. Do I have to be rebaptized? I was baptized by nutcase Pentecostals. A lot of times the Orthodox will probably not rebaptize you, but baptize you because they don't recognize anti-Trinitarian baptisms, and a lot of Pentecostals are anti-Trinitarian. They're oneness. So if I don't attend church every Sunday, do I go to hell? I mean, these are kinds of questions that you're going to ask somebody in your catechumen class. Peace out, Jay. Maybe I won't be saved. Have more money. I'm a slow boy. Don't be mad. I'm a rich Christian or a rich heretic. Just go to the church and check it out at a local level, dog. Ryan Taras, $5. What brand are the ginger chews? I don't know. The one that every Whole Foods and Sprouts has. I don't know. I can't remember the name of the brand. I don't have a sponsorship from Ginger Chews, so I'm not gonna promote them. But I only eat the ginger chew if I haven't had any, like if my blood sugar's low and I'm getting angry at people or something. So I feel fine today. I don't need a ginger chew. What's up, Manny? Money.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'm a Protestant and I have a question. So when a non-Orthodox person prays to Christ, are they praying to the same Christ that an Orthodox person is praying to? Or is it someone different?
Say that again.
So when a non-Orthodox person prays to Christ, like from a...
You're cutting out, man.
Orthodox person, when a non-Orthodox person prays to Christ, are they praying to the same Christ that an Orthodox person is praying to?
Well, they might intend the same referent, but that doesn't mean that it's hitting upon the same referent.
And so is that prayer legitimate? So
well, God can hear people's prayers. That's up to God, but it doesn't follow from that, I mean, a Muslim might... Dude, what are you doing in the background, man? Dude, so loud. It doesn't follow from that it's hitting upon the same referent just because they intend it. And it's just like a Mormon may mean the right Jesus, but the Mormon Jesus is not the right Jesus. So, but God can hear and knows everyone's prayers, and he knows their heart, whether they're sincere or not. War Thunders, $10. I'm not going to read that super chat, but I thank you for the support there. I'm just going to say that, I mean, accusing me of teaching Athari orthodoxy because I teach that the theophanies are real. When somebody who claimed to be, this person claims that they're a translator of Orthodox texts. They don't have any degree in translation. They just joined the church like not even 2 years ago. So if they want to go that route, they can do that. Christians for Trump.
Hello?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what do you have? Are you like against libertarians? Is that why you call libertarians to debate?
I'm against a lot of the ideas of libertarianism, yeah.
Are you like, by libertarian, do you mean like anarchist, or do you mean more like...
any of those positions.
Okay, so like if I'm a libertarian, for example, and I believe that government should be limited to boundaries within just the Constitution, like what's wrong with that?
If what now?
So if I'm a libertarian, I believe that we have a government that is stepping over and trampling on the boundaries that the Constitution set on it.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong with that?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's not what I disagree with libertarianism about. I disagree with the Enlightenment ethos of libertarianism.
Can you clarify what Enlightenment ethos means?
I mean, the Enlightenment, like libertarianism, comes out of that whole ethos of rights are natural, grounded in natural law. They come from the bottom up. There's no divine authority. Negative liberty. I mean, I see all these as a problem. The state only exists to promote pleasure, utilitarianism. I mean, all these things are a problem.
Okay, I would agree with you on that. I believe that rights come from God, so I would agree with you on that. So I'm currently in RCIA to become a Catholic.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that drew me to Catholicism versus Orthodoxy was that the Bible says that God would not allow the gates of hell to basically overcome the church.
Yeah, well, how do you know that's the Roman Catholic Church and not the Orthodox Church?
Well, because they were one church before the schism.
Okay, so how does that not, maybe it's still the Orthodox Church. So how does it say it's the Roman Church?
Well, so the Roman Catholic position is still that the Orthodox Church has a valid priesthood and valid holy orders.
But what does that have to do with it? Yeah, but it's in schism according to traditional Catholic teaching. So what does that have to do? It's not the true church anymore. If it's not in union with the Holy See, it's not the true church. So how does that tell you that it's the Roman Catholic Church that is the fulfillment of Matthew 16's promise?
Because even though that it's not in communion with the Pope, it still has valid holy orders and a valid priesthood.
It's not. Are you going to answer the question, or you don't understand the question?
I don't understand the question.
How does that tell you it's the true church when it's in schism? It's not in communion with the Roman Church. So how do you know that Matthew 16 is fulfilled in the Roman Church and not the Orthodox Church? And just saying that, well, the Roman Catholics believe that Orthodox have apostolic succession isn't an answer to that question.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I was going to say, because they have apostolic succession.
All right. Well, I thank you for the question, but you're not getting it. So moving on. Byzantine Orthodox catechumen.
Hello?
Yep.
I just wanted to ask you real quick. I've heard Catholics making these statements that the essence-entity distinction is only conceptual, and that Palamas' disciple taught that. What would you say to that?
I mean, there's a whole article written by a Uniate scholar, Christian Capes, if you're talking about Scholarios, and the whole point is that you can't say that it's purely conceptual. It's prior to conception is the terminology that they use, and the Palamite synods define them as distinct realities.
Gotcha. Appreciate that. That's all I wanted.
It's the article is on the energies, and I'm not recommending this weirdo's website, but it's, let me find it, hold on. You can just read the essence entity distinction of the theology of Saint Gennadios Scholarios by Father Christian Capes, who is one of the most famous Uniate scholars, and he admits that obviously they're not. It's the essence entity distinction is not purely conceptual. It's not the Thomistic position, and the Fourth Palamite Synod condemns the idea that it's only conceptual. So if you have the orange. If you have the orange book right here by Palamos, the Hesychast Controversy, the Fourth Palamite Synod is concerned with that very position, that it's purely conceptual, and it's rejected in the Tomos of 1368. I wrote a whole article on my Substack on it. The Thomistic view is explicitly rejected, so it's utterly idiotic to think that you can combine these two positions.
Because, I think they try to quote mine, Palamas' disciple. Seems like that's what they do.
You mean Scholarios? Well, we have a bunch of people in my Discord who are translators, not fake translators who claim that they are when they don't have any degrees in anything. And they have actually translated various texts from Scholarios, and no, he does not teach anything close to the Thomistic position. So Capes is correct. Scholarios explicitly says that Aquinas is completely wrong on the essence-centered distinction. Thomas denies it. Thomas thinks that the attributes are only distinguished in the mind.
Yeah.
So there you go. I mean, it's kind of a silly position, really. I mean, if you just get into the literature, you don't have to go very far before you find out that's the case. Baki. Baki. Are you going to unmute? Baki, B-A-K-I. Try again. Parabolic. don't know what's going on. People having a hard time. Sheriff? Omar Sharif?
Hey Jay, how are you?
What's up?
Question for you. Is human nature simple or composite, in your opinion?
It's clearly composite. Multiple church fathers say it's composite, body and soul.
Right.
Anything created is also composite.
Right, understood. Would it be correct to say that a human being is consubstantial with the substance of the flesh and also consubstantial with the substance of the soul?
I mean, the word human being usually refers to a whole human being, body and soul. So I don't know what you mean.
No, I understand. As in, for example, if we were to think of them as two sets, right? The set of all, human souls and the set of all human flesh, would a single body be a member of both sets? Like, would that be okay to say consubstantial with the substance of the soul and consubstantial with the substance of the body?
I don't understand what the point of that is. Why would you want to say that?
Well, so no, the only reason why I'm asking is, again, with the hypostatic union, the act of composition, I guess, of Christ. Like, is there a reason why the Chalcedonian position isn't that Christ has three natures, actually? Because there's the substance of the logos and the substance of the flesh and the substance of the human soul.
It's just distinguishing two different types of things. It doesn't mean that it's a wholly different nature, because the body is solid and in space and time and has spatial location. It doesn't mean that the soul is therefore a totally different substance or nature, because the term human nature is supposed to encompass the two together. So no, it's not three different natures just because the term nature or the term substance is used in a different way. Substance in the modern word, can you mute when you're not talking? There's like a loud static.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I'll mute.
So after Descartes, substance takes on a different meaning in Western philosophy. Substance typically means some kind of substrate or some kind of physical collection of corpuscles or molecules or atoms. In the ancient world, when that terminology is used, or in the Middle Ages or whatever, they're just talking about a term that encapsulates one type of thing or one kind of thing. So angels and souls are non-physical types of things. And so they might be called, aerial substances, or the soul is a type of substance. It doesn't mean it's a completely different type of, quote, nature in the strict definition, the way that it's used in the terminology of the councils. So no, even though body and soul are two different types of things, they're not intended to be, strictly speaking, different natures in the same sense as divine nature and human nature. Nature just encompasses the two together in that context.
I guess I'm wondering then what to make of St. Cyril's, pointing to the composition of body and soul as a model for.
It's an analogy, right? It's an analogy for the two natures coming together in Christ. It doesn't mean that there's three natures in Christ. It's just an analogy. It's called the henotic union.
No, I understand. I guess I'm wondering then if saying that that single nature that St. Cyril talks about is actually just a composite then of all three, effectively, right? It's a composite of the human and the divine, and the human itself is a composite of soul and body, but you end up with one singular composition at the top level.
Well, but even he says in the two letters to Sexensis that it's not a tertium quid. So it still retains the properties of being created and being uncreated, which means that there's two natures. So no, it's not a triplicity that's blended into a tertium quid.
I guess the tertium quid would be if any of the constituent ingredients change their properties somehow, but the composition does not necessarily require the change in properties, right?
Tertium quid means that it's a third new thing. right? So if it's a third new thing, then we don't have any connection to it anymore, nor does God. So it doesn't bridge the gap between God and man. That's what Tertium Quid is a reference to. So it can't be a new nature that's some whole, that's all the three triplicity natures are blended into. That's all I'm trying to say. And the two letters to extensa say that it continues to keep its properties proper to those natures. So it never ceases to be created, it never ceases to be uncreated, because it's a hypostatic union for all eternity.
Got it. So then let me ask you a question about kind of like the Chalcedonian teaching on the hypostatic union, because my understanding, I think you said this before, where the logos exists in the mode of humanity. Is that the phrasing that you use?
Yeah, in hypostatized, right.
Okay, so my question to you is, because, the incarnation can be measured in a moment in time, right? Like, we know, like, there's a time, some 2025 years ago or whatnot, where the incarnation takes place. If the Logos exists purely in the mode of his divinity prior to some point, but then exists in another mode, or and hypostatizes something new, starting in a moment in time, doesn't that necessarily require a change in the divine hypostasis?
It's not a substantial change. It's a change in the sense of adding something new. Like, I put on a coat, and so I have something new on me, but my substance does not change. My being does not change in itself. That's why we sing in the liturgy, he underwent no change.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to reconcile the two, right? Like how
the divinity is impassible. Divinity is impassible. It can't change, right?
Oh no, I agree. I agree 100%. I know that's like a bedrock, foundation for everything.
So
else.
what's meant by the incarnation is that he assumed a new nature, not that he underwent substantial change in that assumption. He's still the same divine person. He's still the same divine person, the same divine agent, the same divine subject, now that he's added a new nature, a human nature, to the previous divine nature that he possesses.
No, I totally understand that. I totally get it. I guess it's that notion of hypostatization that I'm asking about, right? Because that is, you are giving existence to something new in the hypostasis of the Logos that didn't exist before.
So you guys misunderstand what that term means, right? So the Oriental dude that tried to call in the debate, all it means is that he assumed a new thing, and the new thing that he assumed exists in the mode of the person that has it now. It doesn't mean that it changed into something different. I don't know why or where I'm not trying to be mean to you or him, but I have no idea where you would get the idea that the word inhypostatized means that it undergoes some substantial change. If it changed its substance, it's no longer the same substance, ergo it's no longer human nature. All that changed in that sense, maybe you're referring to the idea of deification. So the uncreated energies do deify the humanity that he assumed. That's the teaching of the Sixth Council. But it's still a human nature. It's not a human subject, it's a human nature that has for its subject the divine person who assumed it. So that's all inhypostatized means. It refers to the mode of the nature that he assumed. The human nature of Christ, the mode of its existence is in the existence of the divine person of the Word. It's his now. Just think again. Athanasius, all the way up until Maximus, uses the analogy of a coat. Okay, it's analogy. So I'm a person, J. I have human nature. I put on a coat. I've added something to what I have. That coat now exists in the mode of J. Dyer, who possesses it and has it as his own. That's an analogy that the church fathers use consistently for the human nature. The coat is not a person. It becomes part of my person, you could say, because it's now personalized. It's J's coat. So the human nature that he assumed becomes the human nature of the divine person of the Word who assumed it. It's not a subject. Does it undergo a change? Not substantially, but it's deified.
No, I totally understand. I guess with the coat analogy, which I like, by the way,
that's used by Maximus and Athanasius.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think the question then becomes like that's a hypostasis of a coat that exists in reality.
It's not a hypostasis. Right? It's not a hypostasis. That's the confusion that you guys. It's a nature, not a hypostasis. So after the Cappadocians, hypostasis is specified to refer to the subject or our agent that has the nature. It is not just a nature. That's the confusion here. So Orientals think Orientals think that hypostasis refers to just a concrete nature or an individuated nature, and we do not believe that anymore. That's the source of the confusion. Do you understand why or not?
So well, help me understand, right? So, in terms of it being a particular instantiation of an usia, right? So, like the coat analogy is a particular instantiation of that particular.
Okay, that's the older definition that's used at Nicaea. That's no longer used after Nicaea and the Cappadocians. It's no longer used that way. So no, it's not that, and that's why we make the distinction between. That's why we make the distinction. No, Cyril himself even makes this distinction between nature and person. So no, a hypostasis is not just an instantiated nature. And I can prove this to you very easily. How many hypostases are there in the Trinity?
There are 3 hypostases.
Okay, so are there 3 instantiated natures in the Trinity?
Well, there are 3 instances of the divine.
The answer is
no.
No, there's not. That's the error of John Philoponus. There's not 3 natures in the Trinity. There's 3 hypostases with 1 nature. That's why you have to distinguish nature and person, because it reflects back on the Trinity, you see.
No, I understand. I did not mean to say that there's 3 different natures. Of course not. Right?
Okay, then you can't say that a hypostasis is just an instantiated nature, because that would be 3 natures, 3 gods in the Trinity.
No, sorry. To use analogies again, right? If there is, and sorry, I obviously divine mystery should not be compared to human things, but just for the sake of explaining, right? Or for
this is why the human nature cannot be called a hypostasis. It's not. Because for us, that means a subject or an agent. That would be Nestorian. Okay? It's a human nature, not a human person or subject or agent.
No, I totally understand. And of course, I'm not accusing you of saying a second hypostasis. That's not my point, right? I am. By the way, Jay, I'm.
No. I know that you weren't saying that my position is Nestorian, but I'm saying that there's a reason why we do not call what he assumed a human hypostasis. It's not. It's explicitly rejected. The human nature exists in the mode of the hypostasis of the Son. The only hypostasis, the only person or agent there is the Son. There's no human hypostasis at all, period. That's rejected at the Sixth Council.
But why does the third anathema says anathema to those who divide the 2 hypostases after the union?
You talking about Ephesus? Or you talking about at Ephesus or Chalcedon?
Yeah, Ephesus 4:31, yeah. Third anathema.
Because at that point, that's using the word hypostasis in the older definition, which I'm telling you that eventually, after the Cappadocians, eventually this becomes specified to be agent and not nature. This is why, if you look at Nicaea, right, it talks about God being, having 1 hypostasis. God is not 1 hypostasis, but it means nature there.
Right, the end of the original Nicene Creed, I've seen that, before Constantine.
That's because at that time it meant nature, and the example that you're using, it's referring to nature. It's not talking about the agent or the subject that has the nature. This is developed after this time, specifically at the Fifth Council. The Fifth Council said this is why in hypostatize comes into play, because that's intended to signify the mode of the nature, which is in the subject or the person that has it.
Okay, I'm still trying to get a handle on the mode thing, which is fine. It's no problem. I do have another question for you, which is related.
Good. Let me help you out. So,
sure.
Nature for us, as this theology gets specified after Chalcedon into the Fifth and Sixth Council, nature refers to what a thing is. Okay, person refers to the who, the operator, the agent, the subject, the who. Okay, and that for us is what hypostasis ultimately comes to mean. We do not anymore use that older definition that was used at Nicaea and the example that you're talking about with Ephesus, and sometimes Cyril uses that older definition, which is part of the reason why there's confusion between East and Orientals, right? With Orthodox and Orientals. Eventually, it means subject or agent. And so the confusion results from people going back to the older definition of hypostasis as a nature. And that's not how it's being used anymore. That's why letter 38 of Basil says on the distinction between nature and person. And again, the reason I went to the Trinity is that that's the easiest way to show you that you can't use that older definition of hypostasis anymore, because when you refer back to the Trinity, it doesn't work. You can't say that there's three natures in the Godhead. So hypostasis can no longer mean or refer to, in the councils and in this theology, just an instantiated nature. It has to be more precise to be the agent or the subject that has the nature, hence the nature-person distinction.
Okay, thank you for that, Jay. I do have a related question on that. So we know that the saying goes from the fathers that is what is not assumed is not saved, which of course makes sense. So we know that in the incarnation, the only prosopon, the only subject is the divine person of the Logos. No disagreement there. I guess, is God saving human flesh and human souls, or is he saving human persons? Because then there's kind of like a dilemma, I think. And by the way, this is a genuine question. I'm trying to figure out how to square this, because that which is not assumed is not saved, and we know that he did not assume a human person. That's Nestorianism. So then all he assumes is a human flesh and human soul. Is God just saving souls and flesh, or is he saving persons?
No, the person is the unique mode of the individual's existence. So this is why you're not understanding the difference between the things in themselves and the mode of the thing. So mode refers to how a thing exists or the way that a thing exists. And this is important in theology because, for example, when we distinguish in the Trinity, let's say, nature and person, right? And we say that there's three persons and there's one common nature in the Trinity. Mode helps us to explain how that nature exists, in what way. And it's not abstracted. You don't have this like universal nature that three hypostases participate in. That would be Platonic. The way that the divine nature exists is in the mode of the persons that have the nature. And so eventually in hypostatize is also stated of the divine nature. It exists in the mode of the three hypostases that possess it. Likewise, human nature exists in the mode of the specific individual persons that possess it. I'm the person Jay, you're the person Bob. We have a common nature between us, but that nature exists in the unique mode of the hypostasis J that possesses that nature. It exists in the unique mode of the person Bob that possesses that same nature. And so we're not clones of Adam because we have a unique hypostasis or hypostatic mode of existence that instantiates human nature in a unique way for each person. So that's the distinction between nature and person. So Christ assumes in the incarnation all human nature from all eternity. All of it. And that's why all the humans are resurrected, you see. But the role of person here for individual persons, that's how we accrue individual responsibility for virtue or for vice. So even though we're all going to be resurrected, if I don't recapitulate the virtues and participate in Christ, that resurrection will be an ever ill-being for me, as Maximus says, versus ever well-being. So this is why mode is very important, not just in Godhead or in Christology, but also in anthropology to distinguish individual persons. So Christ assumed universal human nature, but it's up to every individual person to willingly participate in that in order to receive theosis. Because everybody's going to be resurrected in terms of recapitulation. Not everybody's going to participate in theosis. That's why it requires your own mode of willing, which is in hypostatic, personal.
That's okay. So you're saying that the teaching, Chalcedonian teaching, is that he assumed all human nature, universal?
Absolutely, yeah. That's why all people are resurrected. It's called recapitulation. So go you read St. Irenaeus and he says Christ recapitulates everything that Adam lost. The totality of all human nature is lost in Adam. In 1 Corinthians 15, which is what Irenaeus is citing there, is the recapitulation of all the human nature that Adam destroyed, all of his descendants. This is why the wicked are resurrected. It's called recapitulation. It's not taught by Rome. It's not taught by Protestants. It's taught by the Orthodox. And St. Cyril teaches recapitulation, by the way.
So let me ask you, because I always thought that there was a connection between the necessity of the Eucharist and the resurrection, right? The promise in John 6 that he who eats my flesh and drinks my blood, will live forever, and I will raise him on the last day. I thought that that's how the resurrection, at least for the righteous, is achieved.
No, everybody's resurrected. The scope is just as universal in 1 Corinthians 15 for everyone as it was universal that what Adam lost. So everybody who fell in Adam will be raised in Christ. But that doesn't mean everybody participates in theosis, you see. That's only for those who, by their own will and decision, join the church and live the life of the virtues and participate in the uncreated energies to be deified, you see. That's why Maximus says we're all going to the same eschaton. So Christ in the death, burial, and resurrection and ascension purchased ever being and immortality for all human beings. All of our natures are resurrected. There's no other basis to be resurrected than Christ's work. And this is why it sounds odd. I'm not calling you out personally, but it sounds odd to people who've grown up, not you, but like in Western theology, when they hear that Christ assumed universal human nature, that's why all people are resurrected. What? Well, there's no other basis to be resurrected. God's not just willing the wicked to have hell bodies, like Augustine says. This is a thing that Augustine got wrong. He doesn't teach recapitulation, even though all the Eastern Fathers and the people before him taught recapitulation.
So what role does the Eucharist play then? Because I thought that the teaching of the Fathers is that, the tree of life in Genesis is the Eucharist.
No, you're not understanding. Just because you're resurrected doesn't mean that you're having a good experience. So as Maximus says, in the recapitulation and the restoration, if you were wicked, your body will be unable to endure the divine energies and presence of God, and so it becomes ever ill being for you. So the resurrection becomes a bad thing for you, you see. So that's what the damned are. They're in that state of being.
Okay. I'm willing. No, that's fine. I'm willing to grant that that's not what I'm questioning. I'm questioning. So given that, what role does the Eucharist then play as the tree of life in the whole kind of story of salvation?
Again, what I just said, that you don't participate in theosis, deification, without participating in the life of the church. So the wicked are resurrected, but they're resurrected to the resurrection of the unrighteous, wickedness. It's still on the basis of Christ, though. But they didn't actualize the potentiality that they had to become members of the church, and so their experience is ever ill-being, and those who participate in theosis, in the life of the church and the eating of his flesh and blood, participate in ever well-being. That's theosis. So the wicked are resurrected, but they don't have theosis.
Got it. Okay. Very clear. Thank you so much for the discussion, Jay.
And this, absolutely. No, they're great questions. And this alone, by the way, the point about recapitulation is something that nobody in the West teaches anymore. I think this, if you really understand this, let's see if we can find Irenaeus's comment on it. I don't know who this is or what this website is, but this is the quote here. It's Against Heresies 5:21:1. He, therefore, in his work of recapitulation, summed up all things, both waging war against our enemy and crushing him who had at the beginning led us away as captives in Adam and trampled upon his head. As you can perceive in Genesis that God said to the serpent, I'll put enmity between you and the woman and between your seed and her seed. And so he goes on to say that the Son of Man then vanquishes death in our nature through his resurrection, which affects the entire nature. You see, so Adam sins, and everything that comes out of his progeny is subject to death, decay, immortality, and the loss of theosis. In Christ, the nature is restored to be immortal. That's why it's resurrected. There's no other basis for resurrection than Christ. God doesn't just arbitrarily will that all the wicked be resurrected and they have no connection to Christ. 1 Corinthians 15 is teaching recapitulation, and it's comparing the scope to Christ. And this is really hard for Protestants and Roman Catholics to understand. So that's why we come over here and Christ has risen from the dead and has become the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. For by man came death, so also by man comes resurrection of the dead. For in Adam all die, so in Christ all will be made alive, each one in his own order. Christ is the first fruits, and afterwards those who come after him at his coming. Then is the end when he delivers the kingdom up to God, right? So he must reign until he has put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy to be destroyed is death, and then he will be all and in all. So you'll notice the scope of what Adam brought, right, is to all human beings. Likewise, all people are resurrected in the general resurrection only on the basis of Christ. There's no other basis for resurrection. And this is called recapitulation, which is taught by the Eastern Fathers. It is not taught in Western Latin theology. And it's taught by Cyril. I'm not dissing that previous guy, but we've got Orientals coming in here trying to quote Cyril. Cyril teaches recapitulation. So it's do you guys don't read your own dudes? I mean, Cyril explicitly says Jesus assumes universal human nature. How else are all humans resurrected? There's no other basis for it. There's a great article, by the way, by an Orthodox professor that touches on this. Jesus Christ, the universal person. And this is an article written by, I'm trying to remember this professor's name. Manzarides. He's the guy that wrote the Palamos book. Georgios Manzarides. And by the way, his Palamos book says that the theophanies are actually seen by the visible eye as well. So this is something that refutes the people who constantly try to argue with me. People who are just sending in the super chats, who claim to be translators who don't have any degree in anything. Even though Manzarides says that they saw the theophanies with their physical eyes. RC? Oh no, this guy.
Hello?
Yep.
Hey. It's working today, thankfully.
What's on your mind?
So, a clarifying question before I get to my actual question. Do you believe that Mary is the mother of God in heaven?
Yes. She never lost that status because it is always the case that the person that came forth from her is God.
Got it. So then who was the mother of Jesus before he was on earth?
He did not have a mother because he was not yet born as a man.
So why would that change in the heavenly realm?
Because he stepped into time and space and took on human nature and a human mother.
Yeah, human mother while he was human, but in his divine form in heaven, he doesn't have a mother.
He's still in his human nature. He ascended in the human nature that he assumed on earth. So he's still a man.
So Jesus' nature changed before he was on earth to after?
Didn't change. It's the same human nature that we have, except that nature is deified. That's why they touch him after the resurrection and he eats fish with them to signify that he still has a human nature. It didn't go away. We're not Gnostics. He has the same nature. It's just deified.
He was always deified.
The human nature was not always deified.
But we believe he came down in human form even before Mary conceived him.
No, he did not have a human form before the incarnation.
So then, in the Old Testament, I think it was it David? Who was David wrestling with?
No, it's not David, it's Jacob. So you're not even familiar.
Jacob,
you're not even familiar with the Old Testament. So
I got one name wrong.
You're completely mixed up, like two very different people. So you're talking about in Genesis 1.
I got a name wrong.
Yeah, it's called. It's the angel of the Lord.
Because I got a name wrong.
Yeah.
So I know nothing about the Old Testament.
We're done. You're not familiar with basic theology at all, so I don't know why we're trying to debate it. That was the RC guy that wastes everyone's time. Terry, what's up? I've already lectured on the theophanies countless times. I'm not going to go through all this all again. Go ahead.
Hello, Jake. Just have a quick question about what you have been saying recently on many shows about how you are in support of the microchip implants in some circumstances, such as your family members who had Parkinson's and all that.
Yeah, we have a guy at our church that has the same thing. So what? Doesn't mean I'm in support of microchips.
Well, my question is, since the Orthodox Church has historically been opposed to that, how are you going to...
Well, then you can expose me as a supporter of Antichrist. So go have fun with that. Aman, what's up?
Hey, Jay, thanks for having the patience to deal with these idiots, but quick question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just got the Peter Schaff 38 volume Church Fathers set. Any recommendations? Because
Philip Schaff?
Philip Schaff, that's what I meant.
Any recommendations?
How I can go about reading it, because I thought maybe you would have some recommendations because you've done it before.
I mean, I didn't read all 38 volumes. I read a lot of it. I mean, I would start with Athanasius on the Incarnation. I would read Gregory Nazianzus' theological orations. I would read Basil's on the Holy Spirit. Then I would say maybe something like Jerome against Helvidius, Jerome against Vigilantius. That's how I would go about it. And then I would start reading like maybe the ecumenical councils and the basic documents because one of the volumes is the 7 ecumenical councils.
Yeah, that's what I'm happy I called to, because I already started reading that and I was like just confused. So I'll start the other way around.
You might also, if you don't want to start with that, because those are pretty heavy theology works. If you want to start a little bit easier, you could start with the post-apostolic fathers and read like the letters of Clement, the letters of Ignatius. That might be an easier starting point than just starting with Athanasius, but that's where I would recommend starting. Let's see. I thought somebody was messaging me about wanting to come to debate. I don't know who this person is. So, I think I have a podcast I have to go do here in a little bit. Subs account.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. I'm currently looking into orthodoxy. I've been passively observing different conversations and debates for about a year and a half now, and I'm at the point where I would like to convert. But my issue right now is my husband. He's not fully on board. Part of him is convinced that it's kind of culty because he grew up Protestant, and growing up, he was part of a church where his mom has been able to get ordained and everything. And though his faith isn't that strong right now, he's been churched enough to be very wary of the different things posited by the Orthodox faith. And his strongest thing that's creeping him out is dealing with relics. And I have a hard time finding information about that. Do you have any recommendations that would help broach the subject? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, we have 4 children.
Yeah, I mean, read Jerome's essay on relics. It's a classic. I always get against Vigilantius and against Helvidius mixed up. The one on relics is against Vigilantius. And Jerome will go through a lot of proof texts and just show kind of the tradition of the church from the earliest days. Against Helvidius is about perpetual virginity, but against Vigilantius. We got some super chats. MKG 2799. Do you think Muslims would try to use that to say that Muhammad is a correction of the true teaching of the kingdom? Or they would go with something like what Daniel said, that Muhammad is the new Moses continuing the old office? Well, I mean, we've actually brought up this point about the finality of divine revelation many times to Muslims. And can you guess what they say? Oh, it's all corrupted, right? That's usually what they go to. Few became a member. What's up, Few? Shout out to him. I think you just have to point out, as I've done many times in many live streams, I think we've even clipped it, like there's no new revelations. Zechariah, what is it, 8:13 predicts that in the Messianic era there's no more prophets. Luke 16 is very clear that Jesus is explaining that John is the last of the Old Testament lineage of prophets. That's why Joseph Smith changed that verse, right? We've argued this with countless Mormons. If you look at Luke 16:16 in the Joseph Smith translation, he changed it because it clearly says that there's no more Old Testament prophets. And if that's the case, then out goes Muhammad, out goes Joseph Smith, you see. So he had to change it. But also, Jude says in Jude 3, it's the faith ones are all delivered to the saints. You get in Galatians 1, Paul says that it's, his teaching is the judge of anything else that comes. And then providentially, you could argue that in Revelation 22, it talks about not adding to or taking away, because there's, I think, an assumption of finality to the revelation of the book of the Apocalypse. Now, there could have been, in John's day when he was alive, he could still preach the oral word of God, and it was the word of God, and the apostles identified their oral preaching as the word of God. But when the last apostle dies, John, there's no more divine revelations. There's no more public divine revelation. Hence, it's the faith once for all delivered to the saints. Now, there can be miracles and there can be clairvoyance, but that is not divine revelation. It's not the same thing as what is the apostolic deposit. And another way we know this is that the Montanists are condemned for this position, for saying that there's ongoing divine revelation and that there's ecstatic, gibberish utterance. And it should be obvious why we want this to be the case, is that it cuts off all this nonsense. We're not going to fall prey to all the cults and the Muslims and the Mormons, because there's a finality to this. So I don't get where and why anybody would even want this. Living Water, $5. Glad to see you still doing your thing. I hope there's more collabs with Sam Hyde to come. I mean, I'm officially a writer on the Sam Hyde Show, so I could theoretically not be asked to continue to write, but as far as I know, they're touring and doing stand-up right now, but I assume I'll be writing on episode 3. So, Sam seemed to like and use a lot of what I'd put into the first 2 episodes, so I would guess I think there's still going to be collabs. Anonymous, $10. Calvinists often say that God does things arbitrarily. It's called theological voluntarism. Quote, according to his will. As Orthodox, will we say that arbitrariness is something that only fallen creatures have, as a gnomic will? Well, it's just really an idea that they collapse God's will into his nature, into his essence, and they kind of make these things the same because they have a absolute divine simplicity position. So Economat, $2. How many natures does Yakub have? Infinite. Economat, $2. Jay, start a Funko coin. Well, I'm pretty much a Bitcoin supremacist, so I'm not going to be starting any cryptos because I tell people to stack Bitcoin, and I don't know why you guys still haven't been listening. We're right next to all-time highs again. All-time high was last week? 108. And we're at 105.2. So we're only a few $1,000s away from all-time high. And people are like, can I wait until the dip to 40K? I don't think there's going to be a dip to 40K. You can wait all you want. You do what you want. I can't tell you what to do. But I don't play markets. Like people think, oh, you're going to play the market. Not really. I have in the past. I've followed the cycles, and I've tried this and that trading, and I did all that for many years. But it's a lot safer to just stack Bitcoin, and you don't have to worry about anything. So, I'm actually toying with the Jack Mahler's plan of not even using fiat at all, and you can get Strike app and literally live on Bitcoin. The only reason I haven't done that is that I'm not sure that we already almost kind of do that. Pretty much all fiat I get is automatically converted into Bitcoin anyway. I just have to pay taxes with fiat, so I don't know if it would actually benefit me to pay taxes in Bitcoin because you pay capital gains tax. So to me that seems counterintuitive, but also his strategy might be because he has a business, so maybe his setup is a little bit different having a business. So I don't know how his taxes work because I'm sure he has a multi-million-dollar business that probably pays a lot of tax. I don't know his situation, but where was the Bitcoin question? Oh, right there. I want to remind you guys, too, that we have a show sponsor, which is Chalk.com, CHOQ.com, the best in supplementation. You can head on over to Chalk.com. Use the promo code J44Life, JAY44LIFE, to get 44% off all of those awesome products. My lamp got too heated and it burned out over here. There's too much there's too much chalk energy radiating off of me. It burned out my little lamp here. So there's kind of a dark vibe in here. We got a dark synthwave vibe in here. My favorite, as you guys know, is that Tong Catalee. I'm a big fan of the Tong Catalee. And it's proven to boost testosterone. So people are like, when do you sell? You guys don't understand. It's like that meme that you see where it's Neo talking to Morpheus. And Morpheus says, when you understand Bitcoin, Neo, you won't even ask about selling. You won't sell. You never sell. That's the point. It's not, you've misunderstood what this is and what my philosophy on this is. It's not playing a market. It's stacking the future of the world reserve currency. And you understand that, 4 states just said that they want to have a strategic Bitcoin reserve? You don't understand how bullish that is? Like, Trump just passed the crypto bill, or excuse me, executive order. It's not perfect. I would rather it be Bitcoin and not just crypto, but we'll take what I can get. If the Loomis bill passes, I know we're talking about theology today, but I just don't understand why you guys don't get Bitcoin yet. Like, I have a super smart audience. How do you guys not get this? It's not that complicated. It does take understanding a Federal Reserve fiat system, so I guess that's over most people's heads. But this is an audience that already understands that. So is it just the boomer mindset of it not being physical? Like, boomers just don't understand. I can't touch it. It ain't real. Well, boomers, do you send emails? Okay, or do you write letters? Do you send emails? Okay, boomers, do you do electronic banking? Every boomer I know has the banking app on their phone. And boomers are using Zelle now. Okay, you're using Zelle, but you don't, Anyway, do you suggest stacking Bitcoin or ETH? ETH has been a giant mess lately. When I was doing trading, when ETH popped off, we did pretty good. We made good on Ethereum when it went from remember when it was $700, and then it went up to $4,000. We did pretty good with that, and then I just flipped everything over into Bitcoin. So I don't care anything about stacking. No, I don't stack ETH. ETH is pretty sucky, dude. When it gets high traffic, every transaction is hundreds of dollars. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So, and ETH is centralized. That's why over time, I just have more and more been Bitcoin supremacist. So, anyway, head on over to chalk.com. Use promo code JAY44 LIFE, JAY44 LIFE to get 44% off all those great products. It's you guys come in the chat and you say all the same stupid FUD that you heard some boomer say on MSNBC, and you say it to sound smart, and you don't sound smart. I know that you're just repeating FUD that you heard on boomer financial shows to sound smart, and you don't know what you're talking about. Bitcoin is a vast rabbit hole of lore, okay? And I don't know all the lore. Will it hit 1 million? Dude, you don't understand. If the Loomis bill passes, the government is buying, I don't care about whether you think it's good or not, the government is buying 1 million Bitcoin in 5 years. That means Bitcoin will be $1 million per coin in 5 years, at least. Does this not register with you guys? I'm trying to help you. Don't waste my time and your time typing out boomer FUD that you heard Dave Ramsey say to sound smart. You don't sound smart. And nobody in the chat cares that you think you're sounding smart. No, I don't do XRP. Why would I want some centralized CEO thing? Well, you might make money in the short term. Maybe you can. Go for it. That's your thing. I don't want XRP. I disagree with it philosophically. The only thing that has any potential of taking over the world is Bitcoin. And it's starting to do that. Do you not see this? By the way, so everybody, and I know everything that Whitney Webb says. I've been listening to Whitney Webb and reading her for years. I disagree with her on some of these points. She has some good points. And somebody sent me some like super Bitcoin architect dude, and I put it in the community tab. He spent doing a 1 hour critique of the pros and cons of Whitney Webb's take right here. And I thought it was a very good balanced reply. His name is Bitcoin Mechanic. This dude knows more than I do about the technical side of this. Okay, I don't know all the techniques. I engage with it from an investment standpoint. And I like Catherine Austin Fitts. We've done many interviews. I respect her, but I totally disagree with her on Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin University did a response critique of her right here. So I think that they are wrong on these points. And I've heard these same points, by the way, since 2017 when I started. And who was right? Who was right since 2017 when Bitcoin was $2,800 or whatever it was back then? Oh, we were. It's $105,000 right now. $3,000 to $105,000 right now. The market, so all you libertarians, the market has decided. It is not unrealistic to say that Bitcoin would be $1 million. It would be 10 times all the gold. No, do you understand that? Dude, you have no idea what you're talking about. The market cap of gold will be surpassed by Bitcoin. Bitcoin already flipped silver, a cool nick. And when Bitcoin flips gold, it will be what, 500, 600, 700,000? That's just flipping gold. And the reason that the government buying 1 million will send it to $1 million a coin is because the other nation states will also then try to front run and buy it as well, you see. Don't you understand that it's not just the U.S. government, the feds, it's the states. This is all over Twitter today. Nobody saw the news today? Guys, I just don't get it. Like, I was telling Jamie this yesterday. I'm like, how come people don't understand this? I don't understand why they can't grasp what is going on with this. Let me show you. How many states is it? Pennsylvania, Illinois, Texas are the ones I saw today. Now, the EU is idiotic because they're the ones still pushing that there will never be anything like that. So that they're sealing their own doom. I mean, I was at the Bitcoin conference when Trump said this.
Knows by heart, never sell your Bitcoin, right? That's right, isn't it, huh?
Has Trump made good on the rest of these promises?
How did I figure that one?
So far, he has.
Never sell your Bitcoin. And so, as the final part of my plan today, I am announcing that if I am elected, it will be the policy of my administration, United States of America, to keep 100% of all the Bitcoin the U.S. government currently holds or acquires into the future. We'll keep 100%. I hope you do well, please. This will serve in effect as the core of the strategic national Bitcoin stockpile. As you know, most of the Bitcoin currently held by the United States government.
So the Loomis bill is a proposal to buy 1 million coins over 5 years. It's not just 1 million coins over 5 years. It's also that will then trigger all of the states who want to do this, already 4 or 5 now, to buy for each state the reserve, and then the other nation states in the world doing the same thing. That is why it pushes up the price up to $1 million, because of the supply shock. It's not just the purchase of the 1 million by the U.S. government. It's also the rest of the nation states who don't want to be last. It's called supply and demand. That forces it up even higher because there's not enough Bitcoin to go around, you see. That's the point. Supply shock. Why do I not like XRP.
And
Let's listen to Jack Mallers.
I have to start off with your viral post, your impromptu press conference that you held, because we got some news lately about this strategic reserve, and it might not just be Bitcoin. So I just want to get your take and your message for the community.
Yeah, well, I think that a Bitcoin strategic reserve. So, firstly, this concept, this idea that's been floated around, and it seems like we're making political progress. I think it would be one of the most important economic announcements in US history. Important meaning, I think, on par with something like Nixon's announcement in 1971. However, I think the big difference that no one's talking about enough is it would be one of the first positive economic announcements. So, important doesn't bias positive or negative. It means it's meaningful to the public, but meaningful to the public has usually been negative with economic US announcements. 1933 was a really big one, and it was the confiscation of gold. 1971, Nixon, the one I keep referencing, was a really big one. It was divorcing ourselves from the gold standard, which the way I like to think about it is divorcing our monetary policy from the immutable laws of Mother Nature and the ability for the government to print currency, debase currency, and inflate the goods and services of the people and the public. And then 2008 was another very important, I would say, economic announcement and string of decisions from financial authorities. But was it positive? No. It was that financial authorities took the side of Wall Street, banks, and private corporations and burdened the cost of the mistakes on the people, on the public. And I think a Bitcoin strategic reserve would be as important and the caliber of those type of financial announcements, but positive. And I think there's a lot of insights in that idea because this is an asset that's owned only 2, 3, 4% of the Bitcoin network is owned by governments. Who owns it, Natalie? The people, the public. This is an asset where its monetary policy cannot be changed. It cannot be forced seizure. It's global. It's inclusive. You could buy a penny worth of Bitcoin. So you're talking about a financial instrument that can measure a grain of sand or a professional sports team, right? And so this is in the best interest of the people. It's in the best interest of the public. And we're reaching an inflection point where is the future of the money one of the people or one of corporations? And so I think it's as important, but positive. And when I see something like Ripple lobbying privately as a for-profit corporation to undermine this idea of a positive announcement that's in the best interest of the people, in the best interest.
So you understand, Ripple is a corporation, has a CEO. It's lobbying. Bitcoin is not a corporation, doesn't have a central office, doesn't have a CEO.
To the public. That's changing the tide of the last century of American economic announcements and monetary policy against the public, against the people, and really changing the momentum in our direction as a country and the leader of the free world. Ripple is bringing us back to all of the awful announcements that are against the best interest of the public that I just walked us through, right? This is private lobbying acting as innovation, acting as a public good and service. But what is it? Ripple printed 100 billion XRP tokens, gave it to themselves, and the distribution to the people is by them selling it.
That's centralization. That's fiat. That is opposite of what Bitcoin is in principle. This was 21 hours ago.
Bitcoin reserve from the Trump administration. Everyone's waiting for that. We got the study and the review, but the Bitcoin reserve, Texas is going to move forward. It looks like with legislation Dan Patrick announced today. That's a big priority for them in Texas. But how about the Trump administration?
Well, there's also a bill in the Senate. I think Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming has introduced a bill to create a national Bitcoin reserve. President Trump has asked us to study that issue, so we're just not ready to comment on it yet, but it's one of the things our working group's going to look at.
Polymarket has that, or has had that at 70%. I don't know what it is today. Pass. If that passes, then I'll be retiring very soon in the next 5 years. By retiring, I don't mean I won't be working. I mean that I won't have to work. I'll be doing whatever I want. Which means I'll be doing what we do already. Denise, $5. Excuse my boomerness. Where do you buy Bitcoin and get started with a couple hundred? What I would do is treat it as And like, I can't tell you what to do, but if I only had a little bit, I would just start stacking it and use it as a savings account. That's what I would do. You can get started with Swan Bitcoin in the show description. Swan is right here. Anyway, so we got Texas, we've got Illinois, we got Pennsylvania, we've got a couple other states. Oh wait, now South Dakota. Look at the states introducing the idea of Bitcoin strategic reserve. Don't you understand? 15? I didn't even know it was that many. I thought it was like 5. So this is news to me. If this is accurate, I assume it's pretty accurate. Max Kaiser's telling Russia that they should introduce a Bitcoin strategic reserve for Russia with no ship coins. That's funny. And yes, as somebody in the chat pointed out, we get a super chat that says about Czech. Yeah, I did see this. The Czech central bank is now the first, Bobby C, $5, saying they want to buy billions of euros for a Czech strategic reserve for Bitcoin. Exactly. So very, very bullish. Everything is super bullish Bitcoin wise. Travis Phillips, $10. Is it worth purchasing through the BTC ETF or just simply holding it? Well, remember, part of the point of Bitcoin is to remove third-party trust. So I wouldn't buy BlackRock, Fidelity, or whatever ETFs. I mean, that's for boomers who know nothing but want exposure to it. I believe in self-custody because that means getting rid of banks and middlemen. I support that idea. So I'm not going to destroy you. There may be some situations where grandpas, grandmas, boomers want exposure to Bitcoin and they don't have the time or the energy to keep up with personal custody, seed phrases, all the difficulties that can come with this. I mean, dude, boomers are still clicking on email links with dancing babies that scam them. So they're probably not going to be able to manage, seed phrases. Let's be honest here, right? I mean, it's a joke, but not really. So there may be some cases where people can get exposure that's not direct, and maybe it works for them, grandmas or something. I don't know. Ideally, it should be like younger people helping the older people or something. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably better than trusting. Would you trust Larry Fink and Boomer Stonkman to do what they're saying? I wouldn't. That's the whole point of Bitcoin, is to remove this trust of all these other people and these failed institutions and scammers everywhere. So there may be some cases where pragmatically you could justify the ETF. It's very bullish for Bitcoin, obviously, when it passed last January. But no, I think you're much better off in the long run just learning how to self-custody, getting, Blockstream Jade, or getting a Ledger or whatever wallet you research and decide you want. Denise, no, we already did Denise. Is that, let me check, make sure I got super chats over here. Yes. Do we have any more callers? What's going on over here? Read it. All right, let's try this. Oh no. Go over there. Here we go. Yep.
Hello.
Uh-huh.
Hey, yeah, so I am a Latter-day Saint. I'm a Mormon, right? And I just had a couple questions for you. Something that I find interesting is if your whole concept is built off of creation out of nothing, right, which we believe in creation ex materia, that sort of stuff. So if you have creation out of nothing, God basically just creates. Would you say that God creates whatever he wants, however he wants? Would that be your definition of how God creates?
Hold on. So just from the outset, like, if you believe in creation out of material, you're already a polytheist because you have another eternal thing alongside God. So how many eternal uncreateds do you have?
Well, I mean, if you want to define something being eternal as making that polytheism.
Well, if God didn't create it, is it eternal?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's literally in our scripture, right? right? That there's
You mean hold on. So you're saying your scripture? You're talking about the Book of Mormon?
No, it's on the Book of Mormon and the Doctrine and Covenants, right? So in DEC 93, that's where you would go to find that, right? So DEC 93, it says element is eternal. It says the spirit of man was in the beginning with God.
Right. So you're
right. So
So that's your position, and I'm asking you, how are you not a polytheist if there's two uncreated eternals?
Well, I mean, we wouldn't define that as polytheism because, I mean, you're coming from that there has to be this one simple thing that is God, right? And that simple thing is eternal, right? That's how you would define it. And we would just define God is the person
so
who's able to
so redefine the words.
The universe
so just redefine the words to So redefine the words to make the position work. So there's an eternal, uncreated thing alongside God, but you don't believe in two eternal principles.
So eternal principles and it being God are completely different, right? So God has...
I don't care whether you call it God because it's still polytheism if there's two uncreated eternal principles. That's polytheism, two gods.
Well, but it's okay, so I mean, it's not God. So we would not define
Well, you're just calling it not God, but it has the attributes of God, eternal and uncreated, but it's not God, and there's two of them, hence polytheism.
So God, I guess, as we would define him, is eternal and created and has all power to then bring about his desire, right? The element doesn't have power to do anything.
Well, he's not all powerful if there's another uncreated eternal thing next to him.
He has all power to bring about his desires.
So that's not all. So he's not all powerful because there's another eternal principle. You're a dualist.
So sure. I mean, I'm not gonna.
Sure. So now you admit that it is dualism. So sure.
Well, I mean, I guess I probably wouldn't have the exact definition of what you mean by dualism. I don't have that, memorized.
Well, you just said sure. I mean, so there's two eternal uncreated principles, God and prima materia.
Sure. Fine. Yeah, that's...
Okay, so you're a dualist, and then you're a polytheist by admission. That's what dualism is defined as.
So, I mean, so polytheism, right? I mean, as
two. That's poly is two at least. Is that more than one? Poly, two eternal uncreated principles. You said okay, dualism, sure. That's two. That's poly.
I mean, so the thing is, you're using polytheism in a way that's like not used in the colloquial sense, right? So colloquially,
no, that's colloquially and definitionally in academic theology. That's literally what it means. More than one is poly. That's two. So no, it's not true. So, you're saying it's just total bullshit.
That's fine. I have a question for you though.
Well, I have a question for you before you ask my question. My question for you is, why do all of the texts prior to the Joseph Smith translation of Genesis, whether Protestant, Orthodox, Catholic, none of them contain the additional 11 or 12 verses of Genesis that Joseph Smith added to predict himself?
See, I think there's an issue with this, right? Because he's not adding that there, right? Like, what I mean by
yes, he is adding it there. What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Let me define that. So this is like a Mike Weir brings this up. Other people try to like make this a thing where it's like, look, he wrote himself into the Bible. What
yeah, he did.
Joseph Smith, right?
So your answer is to just yap around it? You're cutting out. We don't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I'm finding where this comes from. Because again, if you actually look into the Latter-day Saint, scripture, you understand where this is coming from. So
I'm looking into the scripture. Come on, man. Don't give me this crap about if you actually look into it, you'll see where it's coming from. I've got it pulled up.
It comes from the Book of Mormon.
I've got it pulled up.
Yes, so it's in the Book of Mormon. So go to...
Yeah, but how am I going to follow the book? Bro, you're missing the point. Why would I follow the Book of Mormon?
I'm getting to it, right?
No, you're missing what...
The whole point is...
The Book of Mormon is bullshit. I'm not going to believe that because this is in the Book of Mormon, it should be added to the later chapters of Genesis when the entire revelation given to Jews, Christians, Orthodox, Protestants for every century prior to this con man does not have added verses predicting himself.
So, again, that's the thing, right? Then that's just like the people saying, look, atheists will say, well, people don't rise from the dead, so therefore Christianity.
That is not the same thing as the no, it's not. It's not the same thing as the atheist objection. It is absolutely not the same as the atheist objection.
Well, if you let me finish and just not talk over me explaining where I'm going.
Because you're just going to yap, you're not going to give an answer. How is appealing to? You're appealing to the other fake thing. You're appealing to the other fake thing to prove this.
Atheists claim Christianity is fake. That doesn't mean
it is not the same as the no. It's this total false analogy. No, it is not the same. It is not the same. So that's a fallacy to say that if an atheist makes an argument about textual corruption, that's the same as the argument that I'm making. I am not. I'm not making that argument.
You're not even letting me make my claim. You're assuming what claim I'm making before I've even made it, right? So atheists say, okay, so people don't rise from the dead, therefore there can't be a resurrection. And you say, well, look, we have evidence for the resurrection.
That is not the argument being made here. That is a totally dumb analogy.
Would you not let me finish my point?
Every text that is... All right, we're done. You're done. This is so stupid. I don't understand how anybody can believe this. It's completely stupid nonsense. This is not the same as when an atheist says that texts are corrupted, or people, the New Testament writers wrote Jesus into the New Testament, and they wrote and created a prop. That is not the same thing. The difference is the New Testament cites countless times in the Old Testament where Jesus fulfills those prophecies. This is totally different, where you have absolutely no textual evidence at all for additional verses to the last chapter of Genesis that predict Joseph Smith. So it is totally different. No similarity at all to what the New Testament writers do. Remember when we had another Mormon that debated the same thing, and he did the exact same move. He said, oh, well, the New Testament, the apostles, they just craft these verses to make Jesus be the fulfillment. No, they don't. Total nonsense. Jesus isn't just the fulfillment. He's the one that gave the Old Testament prophecies. This is totally different, where you have absolutely no textual proof or evidence prior to Joseph Smith of any of these extra verses in Genesis predicting him. It's an obvious defeater for the entire religion and proves he's a con man. So their only answer is to say, well, it's kind of like what the apostles did, where they crafted Old Testament verses to make it about Jesus. No, they're not con men like Joseph Smith. They're actually proving that Jesus fulfills the prophecies. This is so obviously a fraudulent addition to Genesis to predict Joseph Smith. Why, at the end of the book of Genesis, about the death of Joseph, would there be suddenly a prediction of Joseph Smith thousands of years in the future? I mean, it's just so absurd on the face of it. It's so dumb. And it's obvious that he stuck it in here because it was talking about Joseph, and he's duping all of these low IQ, ignorant prairie muffins into thinking that it's Joseph Smith when it's talking about Joseph the patriarch. It's so obvious. I mean, it's like comedy level stuff, and this is what we're dealing with. Liam, $5. Did you see that the IMF got El Salvador to back off of Bitcoin? Back off. I don't know. I have not seen that. What does that mean? Back off of it. Its success will be down to what the international money power wants. How the international money power cannot stop what is already out there. Bearish. Looks like they're pushing to get liquidity. Who is? I don't know what you're talking about. The government is pushing Bitcoin to get liquidity to do what? Again, everybody that argues this kind of stuff is missing the whole point and idea behind Bitcoin. I don't see anybody else. Looks like we've had we had a nice little yappy Mormon talking about how, oh, well, he's like, you're not using the real definition of polytheism. Two eternal uncreated principles. Literally Aristotle's definition of a dyad. That's two. That's polytheism. Well, but the other thing's not God. It's an uncreated eternal next to God. That's called dualism. And if there's two eternal principles, that's polytheism. Oh, well, it's not, though, because I don't call the other thing God. That's just changing words, dummy. Ash.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. I was talking with a friend that I went to college with about my conversion to go into Eastern Orthodoxy, and I basically got him to admit that the canon that he has was given to him by fallible means. Like, he would say the church was fallible, but that's where he would go to them and go, yeah, the church is the one that gave me my canon. The church is the one who attests Christ to me, even though it is fallible. And then he said, but God's providence is infallible in doing that thing. And so the providence part is the infallible part. And so that's kind of, I guess, his weird way of getting to an infallible message through, I guess, fallible means. I mean, he did say that
that's just a bunch of talking around the very thing that's
sure.
I mean, he's admitting that it's the men that made the decision.
Yeah.
So you can say, well, but it was providence and God did it. Okay, but God providentially directed the men to make the decision. So was the decision fallible or infallible? He's just deflecting and saying, well, the providence was infallible. Well, providence is infallible in everything. That's what stupid object. Everything happens infallibly according to what divine providence sees and foreknows. So that's begging, because that means everything then is infallibly happening. That's stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought a good critique to that was that, like, oh, well, then that's kind of like a subjective argument, because but even him as a Protestant, he would say, oh, well, my 66 books are providentially infallibly given to me. I'm like, well, how, like, the Orthodox can claim that still?
Well, so no, but see, if he admits that the decision back then was, quote, infallible, it's not his Protestant canon.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. And so I thought the best critique was like, well, you realize that that's what the East claims, and their canon is different than yours. So what do you have to stand on? Yeah,
the church universally accepts the Deuterocanon for the first several centuries, and universally proclaims it at Trullo and the Seventh Ecumenical Council. So he's just being a Judaized Protestant like they all are, and saying that, no, I'm going to follow what the Jews said.
Sure. And do you have time for one more question?
Uh-huh.
So another critique that he gave was that he does not see the system of, like, what the Orthodox believe when it comes to the collecting of the canonical text. He does not see that in the New Testament. He was saying that Jesus, when he refers to the Old Testament books, that that Jesus assumes that they're infallible and that they are without error. And he said that's not a showing of the system of Eastern Orthodoxy.
I mean, the ecumenical councils are patterned on what happens in Acts 15, the Jerusalem Council. So if he wants to have Bible examples of how the church should function, Acts 15 is synodal church government. And when they talk about the presence of the Holy Spirit there, that's the Spirit amongst the synod or collegiality. So I don't understand so Jesus cites the scriptures. Every ecumenical council cites the scriptures. So how does that prove that there's no oral tradition or that the church doesn't have normative authority? So I don't understand what that argument is supposed to prove, that Jesus cites the scriptures. Every church father, every council cites the scriptures. They're missing the point that it's not a question of citing the scriptures or whether the scriptures have authority. The Protestants are not understanding that you can't get in a time machine and go back to getting Paul's Autographa. The books that you have in your hand, this collection here, you're assuming that the church preserved, maintained, copied, and transmitted this over centuries, and that it really is the things that Paul wrote, and it really is the things that Matthew, the disciple, wrote. You're trusting. It's not just a matter of, Orthodox think that you got to have an authority say that this is the infallible collection of the Bible, and if you don't have an authority, then it's up to everybody's opinion. No, it's more than that. It's also the very texts themselves were preserved by a community of people that tells you who the authors were, you see. It's much stronger than just some authority claim.
Yeah, agreed.
And the people that preserved it are not Protestants, they're not Baptists, they're not Calvinists, they're not Episcopalians, they're Orthodox.
Yeah, agreements with all that. And like I said, I just thought the biggest critiques of that is that he still has to answer, and I got him to admit that all of the stuff that he believes and affirms, first of all, come from the church. So he affirms at least some type of authority, but he won't make the jump to call it an infallible or normative authority. And I basically just said that's basically just picking and choosing. I mean, that's just picking and choosing.
I mean, yeah, a lot of times it sounds like he's also confusing, normative authority, meaning that there's people who have the ability to bind people's consciences. That's different than existential certitude.
Yeah, and I think he kind of missed that part too, because he told me that I, as an Orthodox believer, wouldn't have a greater amount of certainty that he would. And I said, no, that's the whole point, man. I was like, the certainty that I have as an individual, going through all these church documents, going through all these councils and these canons, like, we're on the same playing field. It's not like I can claim something that I have and you don't, but it's just the recognizing of philosophical justification. And I said, I don't think you have that. You've already admitted, like Ortland and all these other Protestants will admit, that the canon that they've received is fallible, that the message, the gospel they've received is fallible.
Yeah.
And I said, you don't see that as like being any troublesome to you?
Right.
And he just said, well, no. He's like, I can have justifiable belief in it. I don't have to have certainty in it. And I was like, I think you're still confusing the categories.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what you have certainty about.
Yeah, how is he going to tell me if I mean, I've studied, I prayed a lot, and I've come up with my own canon? Because, I mean, you can't bind me by your Protestant canon.
Correct.
You have admitted it's fallible. So on what basis am I wrong if I've come up with my own canon? This is how stupid Protestantism is. It has to admit that literally every church can come up, and denomination or individual gathering of strip mall people can come up with their own canon, and you literally can't tell them that they're wrong with any authority. You can say, well, I don't think it's a right canon, but hey, I mean, it's a free-for-all because it's fallible. There's nothing that's binding within church history.
Correct. All right, sweet, man. I just he's a dear friend of mine. I just wanted to make sure that my critiques were I guess good critiques. Just
I think
sure.
so.
Thanks
Yeah.
so much.
I think they're good points. Genis, $1. Your recommendations on good resources are Orthodox Doctrine of Recapitulation, Cosmic Mystery of Christ by St. Maximus. MKG, do you think the theophany of Joshua 5, would you debate it? What's to debate? It's clearly like he falls on his face to, quote, worship, and it says, take off your sandals, for the place where you stand is holy. So that's telling us it's just like in Exodus when Moses falls down on his face and God says, take off your shoes, for the place where you're standing is holy. So it's the same angel of the Lord theophany as what Moses saw. So yes, I think that is Christ, and I don't know what is there to debate about that passage, MKG. Angel just means messenger, so I'm not sure why what there is to debate. I mean, the only thing I could see somebody saying is that maybe it's Michael because it's the commander of the army of the Lord. But I mean, Jesus outranks Michael. So yes, Michael is the commander of the hosts of the Lord, but Jesus is above the commander of the hosts of the Lord. So he's also the commander of the hosts of the Lord. So I don't understand what the argument would be on this passage. I'm trying to think of any other way to say that this is not a theophany. Cool. This is another point I want to say too, and this bears on the previous question about theophanies. Theophanies are in Orthodox theology a mystery, and I don't have an answer exactly to tell you the logarithmic, technological Silicon Valley account of how they happen. We are told, and it is revealed, that theophanies are energetic manifestations in time and space. They are called divine. They are worshiped. They are called Yahweh. They're called the face of Yahweh. I don't know how Christ does that. And I do not believe that divinity changes or that it undergoes change or whatever. I don't know how. But somehow it happens. because all the Israelites see a fire theophany in Leviticus 9. It's not a physical body of Christ that's manifesting. The burning bush is a theophany. I don't know how. We don't know how. So at a certain point, there is mystery. There's no rational academic explanation of every single element of Orthodox theology and Trinitarian theology. This is why it's called communicatio idiomatum. This is why St. Cyril says, God died for us. God became a baby. Okay, they're not contradictions, but they are mysteries. And so to have this attitude of like, oh, you're an authority because you said that there's a face of the Lord. The scriptures say that the Son is the face of the Lord and that his glory appears in time and space. I don't know how that is, but I'm not a Muslim. I'm not an authority. I'm not an anthropomorphic heretic because I say what is in the scriptures and what is in divine revelation. It's what St. Maximus and it's what St. Gregory Palamas say. Palamas says that the physical eye can see the theophanies. How? I don't know how. But this is precisely why they sawed Isaiah in two, because Isaiah said he saw the Logos on the throne. How? He wasn't incarnate yet. I don't know how. God doesn't tell us all the hows. It's the same as creation. How did God create ex nihilo? Give me the formula. How? How? I'm a spurg. Tell me how, or you're a heretic. I don't know. I don't know the how. Nobody knows the hows. We're told that it happened. Tell me how there's a difference between procession and generation. Tell me how. Tell me how. I'm a spurg. I need everything. It's filled out like a giant algorithm or else I don't believe it. And you're misleading me. I need the algorithm. I need my chicken tendies. I need my chalky milk. I'm a spurg. I don't know. There's not an answer to everything. Grow up. Cole, what's up?
Hey, Jay. Former Mormon here. It was, I've heard a few times Mormons get on and just drives me nuts hearing about it, just knowing I was in it for way too long, but grew up in it and didn't realize it was what it was. And I liked your arguments about Joseph Smith putting it in his own scriptures and Genesis and all that craziness. But some of the things that I found the most intriguing about Mormonism itself is more of the argument of the evidences that we have. Like right now I'm actually in the inquiry stage. I've been going to Orthodoxy for a few months now, but I'm working on catechesis. But it's been fascinating just to see like the scholarly side. I know Orthodox isn't they don't hang their hat on scholarly stuff, but just the fact that we actually have physical evidences of the translations to the Bibles and all that stuff. And then most of the stuff within Mormonism is trust me, bro, just you gotta have faith, you gotta have a warm feeling and all that.
Do you have a question or anything?
I didn't know if you knew of some of the physical deals that came with the only time that there has been any physical evidence of Joseph Smith translations have been clearly been frauds in regards to the Book of Abraham, mainly the Pearl of Great Price.
I don't know. I don't have any physical evidences about the history of the fraudulent translations, but I know they're frauds. But I can tell you that there are absolutely no texts of Genesis prior to Joseph Smith that have anything close to 12, 11 verses added to Genesis that predict Joseph Smith. And nobody in the history of the world has ever believed or thought of anything so stupid. And if you can't recognize that if no text had Joseph Smith in 13 verses to Genesis 50 and Joseph Smith adds himself, if you think that's a real prophecy, I don't know there's nothing I can tell you. I can't help you. Sorry. Silas, $5. I'd love to see you debate rabbis like Misrach or Singer. They're crazy and brag about debating goofy evangelical professors. I don't know. I mean, we've had maybe 5 Jews come and debate in the open forums. Gooner Squad, $5. Is nationalism at odds with Christian theology? No, never said that. So I don't know where you would get that I would say that. Many Christians, quote unquote, believe in liberal views of open borders. I've never argued that. all of the same Protestant pastors, by the way. Everybody sent them the links as usual, and of course none of them have come. J. Chase Davis, that guy, we've asked him multiple times. I've DM'd him multiple times, and every time I DM him, he's like, "Oh, I can't do it. Oh, can't do it." So it was like weeks of not being able to do it. So none of these Protestant people are going to come do this. Do you have any thoughts about the book Thinking Orthodox? $2. I've not read that. Sorry, so I can't speak to that. I feel like I'm missing some super chats. Anyway, I don't know. Thank you guys. A lot of fun tonight. Thank you, Father Deacon, for joining me. If you would hit like and share, and I think I'm on a podcast here in a little bit, in an hour, so maybe 2 hours. I don't know if I don't know if that's live or what, but if it is, I'll share it on the community tab, and you can join by the pinned link